All right, we are rolling. So thanks again, everyone, for joining the New World Normies podcast. Also kind of a Swapcast with the Loco Listens podcast. I guess Mr. Jake himself was on a little bit of hiatus. We were going to do this a little bit earlier, but he's once again rejoined the podcast community. So if you want to kind of shout about your podcast for a second, where people can find you.
Hey guys, thank you so much. It's great talking to you again, and it's really cool to be on your podcast. It's fun being a guest. I think it's less pressure. It's more fun. It's always casual, but it's fun either way. And I love having fun on the Local Listens podcast. If you guys go back to episode 11, you'll find an awesome chat with the New World Normies, Kevin and Devin, and I had a lot of fun. I was listening to that today on my way to and from work. And took a hiatus, started podcasting right around March of 2022, mostly out of just boredom. And I was going insane with being stuck in a very, very paranoid COVID area where people were just on edge all the time. So I was I need to do something and reach out to other people, talk, get out of this echo chamber. So that's been fun. I managed to do 27 episodes. And like I said, we were number 11. Special number, by the way.
It's a great number.
Yeah.
That's our number too.
That, and we actually had Rothy does numbers on.
Oh, cool.
Rothy reads numbers.
He's into numerology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
So I finally published it today. I haven't put it up yet, but we did a podcast with her talking about numbers, Pythagorean numerology. So that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So 11.
That sounds fun.
So I'm a life path and birth number 11.
Oh, okay.
So I was born on 11.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, you were too?
Well, I was born on the 28th of April, but my life path is 11.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So my birthday's 11/11, and then I have all these 11s that.
Oh, cool, nice.
So.
Easy to remember. Yeah.
Yes.
You'd think I still get a happy birthday on November 12th a lot, or the 10th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So can't win them all.
Within the 48 hours,
Yeah. So I guess
gotta get it in. Yeah.
Yeah. I had the same birthday as Leonardo DiCaprio, so I feel like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, since you brought it up, I've got the same birthday as Saddam Hussein.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, classy.
Classic
I know.
dictator.
Yeah, classic.
Remember that whole thing.
Yeah. But, in terms of numerology, I guess 28, Elon Musk was born on the 28th, and they say a 28 day is very much associated with wealth. And I was born in the year of a pig. Elon Musk is also a pig. I hope those things correlate for my own self, but, I've been trying to monetize a little bit. So I guess I'll quickly plug that I've been trying to make a little bit of extra cash doing, I've been having fun. I've been helping other podcasters promote their podcast by creating little video clips, and it's pretty fun. I woke up today and made one for my friend Provo Kid. He's from Provo, Utah. He had a cool video that he wanted to make about ChatGPT and AI, and that's been cool. I'm happy to be back from this hiatus, and I didn't really get into why I took a break, but that's
so I'm dying to know.
Okay. Well,
Itching.
Yeah.
In fact.
Yeah. It was kind of weird too, because I recorded my 27th episode, and I was like, now I'm in the 27 club, and I am 27 years old, so I was like, this is weird. And then I got COVID, and
Oh no!
I had to cancel some episodes. I was excited. I was going to talk to Juan from the Juan on Juan podcast and Chance Garten from the Interverse podcast, and it was a bit of a bummer. Just not only getting sick, but I had COVID brain. Neurologically, I just felt very off for quite a while, and no, I'm not vaccinated. So it wouldn't have made any difference, I guess. Yeah.
Judgment.
Yeah. So,
no judgment.
No judgment.
Yeah, I remember we had talked about this last time, so it was funny just to bring that up because whenever something happens, we're well, did they get the booster?
I know. There's so many good memes about that. It's well, did you get it though?
Yeah, it was climate change actually, but
Yes.
Or someone took a shower that was too hot.
Yeah.
Too cold. That was another
video games causing heart attacks. It's very sad. It's tragic. I was fine, thankfully. it took a couple weeks, but I remember when I first started feeling better, my friend was like, "Let's go hiking. You need to sweat. You got to get some toxins out." And she was trying to like make conversation with me, and I was just so brain dead. I was like, I can't do this. And so I feel way, way better now. I feel back to normal, if not better than I was before. And I moved to Texas from Connecticut. So that was the other big reason why I've been away, getting settled in a new job. And, I'm still teaching high school, but, I'm in a new area, and things have changed quite a lot, but for the best. And I literally decided on New Year's Eve of 2022 that I was going to come back. So I went on this cool artificial intelligence video creation site, and I formed this like avatar who was speaking the word that I was typing into the computer. And so she was able to announce for me that Local Listens was coming back. So happy to be back with you guys.
Oh yeah, I
Happy
did
New
see
Year.
that post. Yeah, you posted that. That's right.
It's kind of creepy actually, but it's it was supposed to be like kind of like a wink in that direction for the AI and what's happening these days with all that.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. I saw that edit you did, which is really awesome. Like
Thank
a
you.
lot of the stuff you do is fantastic. But I did see a post that Jordan Peterson had. It's like I guess it's going viral, a clip talking about chat GPT. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, GPT. I don't know what that stands for, but
Yeah, but he was saying that he wanted the AI to write a chapter of one of his books, but include a 13th rule instead of his 12 rules. And so he asked to combine the King James Version Bible as well as the Tao Te Ching into one chapter, like what the 13th rule would be. And he said it was pretty much perfect. And he said it wrote it in about 3 seconds. And it's like you wouldn't be able to tell really that it was me or an AI bot.
Yeah, it's really quick, and it does have a profound level of intelligence. And I just looked this up really quick. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it's generating something unique. It's pre-trained to respond to certain, like an algorithm is a pattern. So it's like picking up on a pattern. It's pre-trained to recognize those prompts, and it transforms our language into its own language. It's really quite fascinating.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's incredible what's going to happen. I mean, who the hell knows how that's going to affect the rest of humanity.
Sorry about that.
Oh, what's your dog's name?
Sorry, we're going to grab some treats for him. He's going nuts.
Sure. Did you guys have a dog last time we had chatted?
Yeah, we did. Actually, it's funny. I listened to some of that episode that we had with you, and it's just like you hear the baby in the background.
Yeah, the baby was present the entire time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there was that baby there last time. Yeah. Cool. But kind of just getting into it since you were. Hey, baby, come here. Hey.
I just got a little kitten a couple of days ago. Her name is Hershey. And now that she's here with me, it's funny, like she'll be like making noise in the background, or she'll come up and like start meowing into the microphone, and it's a whole new here she is.
Yeah. Oh, well, there she is. Well,
yeah,
it's a lot better than just like a 70-pound dog like going nuts at people.
Yeah.
But so cool. So getting back to your transition, coming back to this world. So what was it like going from, I guess, the East Coast? You say Connecticut area?
Yeah, Connecticut, yeah.
What's the teaching like? Like the curriculum, was it a massive difference?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, okay, so if anyone is familiar with the East Coast, I was teaching in Danbury, Connecticut, which Danbury High School is the largest public school in Connecticut. It's the most overcrowded school, and it's the most underfunded. So it's like, because the way Danbury worked, it was very urban, but there were like very wealthy areas. It was a huge town. And so they were wealthy enough to not deserve the federal funding that they really needed, even though most of their population was like very, very poor. So that was a pretty crazy place to be working in. There was constantly fights and drug-related incidents. And, I've seen the school security guards tackle many people before. Just like, it's like fucking the NFL over there, But so I came to Texas, and yes. And to be fair too, like high schoolers are generally the same across, wherever you are, depending on, the involvement of parents. And I remember we had talked about last time, the best teachers are parents, no matter what. I can never really replace mothers or fathers. But in this new place in Texas, I'm right outside of Dallas. I'm about 20 minutes from downtown, working in more of a suburban area. And well, in general, like before I even started teaching, I had picked up on the stereotypical the phrase Texas friendly, and how like people imagine New York City, because that's very close to where I was, about like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive from Danbury. And people in New York City, they like rush past you. They don't really look at you. They're a bit like rough around the edges. But when I came to Texas, I've definitely immediately, I mean, I guess the further south I was driving, the more like friendly vibes I was getting from everyone. Even just pulling over to a truck stop or a gas station, it was like, wow, like people are just so pleasant. And so
That's so
I've
different.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, because we're from the East Coast too, so we get that vibe all the time. We live in Maryland, so
Really, right? Yeah.
It's still the same.
Yeah, it's very strange. So I'm happy to be here, and as far as teaching goes, I'll start with what I don't like, because I like a lot of things about being in Texas and living and working here. But there's too much emphasis on standardized testing, and we have what's called the STAR test, because we're the Lone Star State and the STAR test, and so
you gotta get it in somehow.
Love
gotta
a
get
theme.
that Lone Star in.
yeah, what a theme. Yeah. The problem is though, like this standardized test, it doesn't make the kids feel like a star. It's like if you're like playing a video game or you're reading a book and there's a section of that book or that game that you just have to get through, you're not really enjoying it. It's like, I just got to get over this hurdle. So every 9th and 10th grader has to get over this hurdle, take this STAR test. I happen to teach 10th grade English, and it's just like the most dry, generic thing. But the thing that I really like about this is that because I've got to train them for such a mundane task of taking this test, whenever we get to do something creative, it's just more and more, it's extra special. It emphasizes that contrast, really emphasizes any creative work that we get to do.
Do you have like a lot of creative, what's the word?
Creative freedom, creative license.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always have. I mean, I've been teaching in public school for 3 years, 2 years in Connecticut. This is my first year in Texas, and I was worried that it was going to be kind of like Hollywood, like they like hand you a script and it's like, okay, you say this, and then they say that, and like I could do whatever.
It's all good.
Yeah. It's there are teachers pushing agendas, and I know we spoke about that last time, where it's like some of my colleagues, I noticed that they were actively promoting certain issues that people were marching in the streets about, and it was never something that I thought I was going to be dealing with. But what ended up happening in Texas was I found that if I talked about my experiences like back during COVID, because it was weird. As soon as I got to Texas, people always referred to the pandemic in the past tense. Whereas in Connecticut, it was like, oh, it's still going on. I can't believe you're moving to Texas during a pandemic. Like, don't you know that's like the hot spot, Florida and Texas, you're going to get COVID if you go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
not
death
political at all.
Yeah, you're walking into the death row.
Didn't they come out and say that their numbers dropped back in like 2021 or something?
Yeah, there is an interesting, I mean, in general, the number situation is kind of like there have been conflated numbers due to the fact that like, people can arrive at the hospital and they're kind of sick and they have something else going on. Maybe they've got like diabetes and they end up passing away, but they still test positive for COVID. I'm sure most people know this by now, but that would count as like a COVID-19 death, even though it was obviously, something else. And that's a very strange and ambiguous topic. But yeah, as far as the numbers in Texas or Florida, I'm pretty sure that's what had happened. That's probably why the numbers got all skewed.
That was kind of the joke too at the time, where I mean, it was kind of known, but it's like someone goes in with a gunshot wound, they get, it's counted as COVID. But there's also the number and the disinformation surrounding ivermectin too, that people were overdosing on ivermectin and filling up the ER, and they couldn't take bullet wound victims. And like Rachel Maddow had posted this story, even though there was no evidence to suggest this was even going on. No one had even talked to the hospital. It was just someone, I think Rolling Stone might have also written about it too. But
yeah, they took a photo, right? There's like a line of people waiting to enter the hospital, and like that was fake. And
because they were all in like winter coats, and they found out that the picture that had been taken not during the time that it was going on.
If you're gonna fake it, at least be good. Like I went to this smoke shop one time, and the guy, I paid for my stuff, and I walked out, and I'll never forget this. He was like, "Well, be good or be good at it." I don't know why. I just like, man, that's a wise man right there.
What the hell?
I really like that.
Right.
That's like
pretty solid bumper sticker.
It's pretty good though.
Right. There's such a deeper meaning to it, but at the brunt of it, you're just like, like okay. I actually have a very like normie friend, and she said to me, because we were in a discussion one time, and she knew my stance on the jab, and I knew her stance, and I never said anything, but it was at one point when it was like kind of, I want to say it was like 2021, and she kind of kept pushing like, well, did you get it? Did you get it? And I kept avoiding it, and finally I was like, no. And she was like, well, I don't really want anyone around my family right now, because she had a very young child at the time. So her family is very much still in it, like the belief system of that. But she said something to me. She was like, I read something about the numbers being inflated. And I was like,
it's like, it's getting to them.
Oh,
eventually it's coming out.
Yeah.
Because she had it. She had COVID. So did like her husband and other family members. And she has the boosters, the jabs, all of that. And then on top of that, we were in a discussion one time when I was seeing information coming out about Israel, and people that were inoculated were getting it and were spreading it. And she was like, that's not true. And
that was usually, exactly. The response is, that's not true.
Yeah. So what I decided from then on out was I could no longer be in a discussion with someone who wasn't looking at the information that I had. I looked at their information, and then I looked at the other information. So the information that they had, why was that better than my information? It wasn't that I was getting information from some weird website that, was clearly like being run by like a troll. No, this was actual data that was coming out. And I'm like, we would tell this to people that we knew that were, older family members that were in the medical profession. They're like, well, I'm reading all these studies, and that's not what I'm seeing. And like, I'm also reading studies.
Yeah.
So
that's what the internet. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, it's a bigger point of just people are realizing that the media is just totally captured by these corporate entities, and it's just you can't really fake it anymore. It's now with the internet, how crazy it's gotten now with Twitter, letting back all these people on, these doctors. I mean, the media's been so absurd with their lies in the past, and they've even been caught, but nothing happens. Like, for example, when Osama bin Laden was killed, they used a stock photo of some other random jihadi and then doctored it up to make him look like Osama bin Laden. And like, that was the picture all across the globe, but then it turned out it was fake.
Yeah,
they changed the head a little bit, and they put like his eyes, or like part of his eye, because you couldn't see the other one. But it was a stock. They just took a photo and they just changed it to look like Osama. Yeah, and then everyone figured it out, and then no one got in trouble. Nothing happens, and it just keeps going on. That's
and then the whole explanation with the body. Well, we threw it overboard.
Yeah, they throw it in
the ocean. Yeah. No, that's crazy to think about, because like, all right, so using Chat GPT as an example, like this is something that's been around for a long time. It's just now it's public, and the deep fakes that people can create, they can create an AI image of someone. I'm guessing, like, if we really think about it, like they could fake someone's death so easily, and it's crazy because like the term deep fake, I don't think people were really using it until like the last couple of years, like maybe like the last 3 or 4 years. When I was in high school, I remember sitting on my couch seeing the news come on, like, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And and then they later did show, or they never really showed. I found that that photo that you're referring to, and I didn't think twice about it. I was like,
No.
oh, there's Osama. Yeah.
Why would you think, like, yeah, they would lie about something like that? But clearly being in this, I guess you could call it conspiracy, like, community, or just being aware of how the world works, you just see lie after lie. And it's just, can you believe anything anymore? Like, and that's what's so crazy.
The key word there is community too. Like, I'm appreciative, and like, I wanted to say this earlier too. Like, as far as the normies go, and like the legacy normies, which is a funny phrase that you guys used last time. I really like that. It's like, the good news is that there are so many breadcrumb trails out there, and I guess in the community, like you said, if you put something out, if you share an article or a podcast or a tweet or whatever, even just a simple meme can really change someone's mind. And I think, it would be dangerous to believe, just like, a social justice warrior, like, you cannot save everybody, but anyone who wants to be saved, they can find plenty of information. It's, are they willing to divorce themselves from this attachment to, like, this loyalty to the the mainstream sources? And it's cool because in your community, the friends that you create, through the friendships that you create, become your mainstream sources. People could share, like, I could send you guys some article and it might turn out to be bullshit, and you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm never talking to you again. It's just like, well, I'm glad you actually read it and deduced and found out for yourself. That's what we should be doing. And I'm thankful that there are people out there who are willing to share and speak in a different way than how everyone else.
It's good that people are becoming discerning, because, like, we need discerning minds, and so the more discerning minds we have, the better.
Exactly. Yeah.
So again, let's go back to the community. Now that you're in Texas, what's the water cooler situation like with your coworkers?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you guys about this too, because I was curious. I know Connecticut was pretty uptight with everything, and then so I talked to my fellow coworkers, and I try to avoid making it political, but you can't help it sometimes, just because of what has happened. And just, I'll be clear though when I say this, like, although, like, red might seem more appealing than blue based on what happened during COVID, like, I don't pledge allegiance to any party. I pledge allegiance to the country, but not necessarily like a party, so. But that being said though, most teachers are very liberal, but that's only, from my frame of reference in Connecticut. When I got to Texas and I was telling them about the mask mandates and the vaccine mandate, and they made me, get my nose violated every week just because I was unjabbed and all that, they were shocked. They were like, they did that to you? And not only that, they were like, you let them do that to you? I was like, oh, no. Yeah. So, I mean, they've been very supportive. The water cooler talk is interesting. Like I said, the language is key.
Yeah.
They very quickly moved on. They referred to the pandemic, or back in the pandemic, very much earlier. The mask mandate was lifted much earlier. The kids, when I asked them, like, hey, do you remember, like, being in masks all day? They're like, yeah, but it was BS and we all knew it. And I'm like, wow, it's a very telling answer.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so it's a relief to be somewhere different. I got to visit Texas, or I got to visit Connecticut for the holidays, and that was interesting. I've never flown during Christmas time. That was nuts. I honestly wouldn't recommend that for anyone.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Christmas in Connecticut. Yeah. There's a whole entire thing about it.
There was a thing about it, yeah. And to be fair, like, it was beautiful. But one time, actually during 2020, Christmas of 2020, I flew to Tampa, Florida, because if back then in 2020, the tickets were stupid cheap. I flew to Tampa, Florida from JFK in New York for like $60, I think. It was crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Shout out to Spirit Airlines.
They're killing the game.
Yeah.
They'll get you
in my spirits for sure.
You're gonna feel like you're in a jalopy in the sky, but hey. I mean,
yeah. And just for anyone wondering, if you're up in the northern hemisphere, you know, Texas and a place like, or sorry, Christmas in a place like Florida, just imagine like 4th of July, like everyone's having a barbecue outside. There's like music playing, like no one's like stuffed inside, you know, everyone's just, it was incredible. So I came back and I was like, man, I kind of want to move south.
Yeah, it sounds
and
way
then you
better.
saw that it was like, oh, this is the place to go.
Yeah, the weird thing was too, like December of 2020, this is still fairly early on, and I was supposed to wear a mask on the plane in New York, and as soon as we landed in Tampa International, everyone took it off, and no one in the airport was wearing it. It was like a totally different country, different world. Yeah.
I guess that's the good thing about having states, right? I mean, you get to have these little experiments going on. I mean, ideally, but there's obviously so much federal overreach now. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, like I remember, you know, if you guys are into the astrological point of view, I was driving. Okay. Yeah. I was driving to Texas from Connecticut during Cancer. And the Cancer season can be emotional. I mean, that's just like one way to describe it. During the season of Cancer, 2022, summer of 2022, was when, like, on my way to Texas. I was probably in like Nashville, Tennessee, when it was officially announced that Texas was going to be doing the abortion ban. And it was very strange energy driving into the place where this was happening. And you know, I'm not going to provide my 2 cents on that issue because I'm not qualified. I'm not a birthing person or a woman, as they say.
Thank you. I'm just
yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, and I never will be.
That's really interesting that you're bringing up the astrological aspect, because Cancer is ruled by the moon, and that is seen as like the mother, and like fertility. So now, I don't know if you've heard this before. If you listen to this is where I got it from. It's from Tinfoil Hat.
Yes,
but
love Sam.
Yeah, like he cracks me up. He always says the millionaires read the papers, the billionaires read the sky.
I said this today to one of my students. I swear to God, what a synchronicity. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what he always says, and I've always wondered, because Reagan had a astrologer, and
his wife was really big into that too.
And so is Reagan. They made when everyone found out, they're like, oh, it's his wife, it's Nancy, but they both were, because she came out after they kind of like, because the Reagan era was the very like, I don't say it wasn't the beginning of like the Rhino conservatives, but it really had that mainstream family first, more religious connotation, which the right never really had until probably, well, Nixon was a little bit with like, you know, the drug laws, but
that is a bit religious.
Yeah. So the religious connotation started kind of, they're starting to be like, well, we're gonna be like, you know, at the forefront of family first and blah, blah. So when they found out that to some Christian religions, they're basically practicing, in their eyes, witchcraft, they're like, oh, that's just Nancy. She just
say no.
Yeah, just say no.
Yeah.
Tear down that wall.
This is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Scrambled egg. It's like, is it?
I cannot wait to do drugs after I was like, please, for the love of God, just whatever is going on right here, just erase it. I don't want to feel anything.
Yeah. I'm really happy you brought up that quote that Sam says a lot, because, you know, well, obviously the synchronicity is crazy, and but you've reminded me, and I got to give full credit to Mario Garza of Symbolic Studies. You can find him definitely like in the Weaving Spiders Welcome Interverse podcast. He's spoken to Mark from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, and we spoke about Gemini season of 2020, and nice.
Big
Gemini.
Gemini.
Do you recall the day that George Floyd was killed?
Vaguely. I mean, it wasn't like stamped into my memory, but
it's like May something, or sorry, May 25th, maybe, you know, right around there. Okay, so Gemini. So Gemini is often associated with bricks, and this was back when Rome was being built. There was Romulus and Remus. They were the twins.
Yeah.
And they constructed, or they were, the mythological figures that constructed Rome. George Floyd was murdered during Gemini season, I say murdered loosely. That's another topic. George Floyd was killed. He passed away. I don't know how he died. It's the camera angle's off, right? It was pretty messed up. Anyways,
it's just complicated.
Yeah, that's a complicated thing. Anyways, the thing is, he was killed during Gemini season in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis. What was it called? I'm losing my train of thought here. The Twin Cities.
Twin Cities are
Minneapolis.
Yeah, I got.
I mean, that sounds right.
Yeah, it was one of the Twin Cities.
Twin
Cities. Yeah. So
Minnesota. Wait.
Minnesota, yeah, Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? Okay, yeah, and St. Paul was the other one. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. It's
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yep. Okay, got it. Yeah, he was in Minneapolis, so that's one of the Twin Cities during Gemini season. And the weird thing was, because Gemini is associated with bricks, there was another strange occurrence where all of a sudden these piles of bricks would just show up on the street. Yeah. And if you go back and listen to my episode with Mario, I can't remember which number it is, but he breaks it down much more eloquently than I do. But I just had to bring it up because the astrological encoding of things is interesting. And the last thing I'll say about that, I know that Davos has been happening with the World Economic Forum, and the timing is fascinating because Monday is the Chinese New Year. It's the Lunar New Year.
It's the year of the rabbit.
Yeah, so that's another topic. The year of the rabbit and the year of the cat. People aren't really sure which one it is. Apparently, I've heard different stories that in Vietnam it's considered the year of the cat. In China, it's the year of the rabbit, and people can't agree on it. But that's something to keep in mind. The cat symbolism and the rabbit symbolism are going to be popping up interchangeably. But yeah, it's cool that Davos met right at the end of the year, the end of the lunar cycle, just in time for a new cycle, a new year.
They just had to sneak it in, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the year of the rabbit, so I'm going to go with that.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
You feeling the rabbit on that one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with that one. So to kind of like piggyback off of what you were saying earlier about the, I feel like they've even taken back the term, oh my gosh, the warriors, the politically correct people.
Social justice
warriors, yeah.
I feel like they're like trying to like take that. They're like, no, you're not going to call us that. You can't do that. We're going to try and take that. But
it's mostly just woke now. I feel like
woke.
Yeah. So with the whole astrology, what we were talking about with Age of Aquarius,
yes,
and those people and how we're leaving breadcrumbs, the way that Aquarius works is you're not allowed to bring anybody with you, or else you don't advance. So if you are trying to go into this new direction and you want to be a part of it and you want to be successful, you're leaving Age of Pisces. Pisces is a school of fish. It goes
group thing.
That's a good point. Yeah,
group thing. They all swim together. They all form these thoughts together. It's like a hive mind, but a little bit more. There's still like an individual aspect. It's not a completely hive mind, but which is also weird with Age of Aquarius because everyone kind of associates it with, oh no, we're making this about ourselves. I'm sorry, not ourselves. We're making it about the community. They try to sell you as an Aquarius that Aquarius would be like more about socialism, but that's not the case. An Aquarius, they try to say that they would be for the greater good, but that's not necessarily what it really means. It means that it's just going to be a different type of age of information, and you are going to be kind of on your own. And if people aren't going to move, so it's kind of like a greater good.
Well, you add to the greater good depending on I mean, hopefully, like you realize the path you're on and are able to like walk forward, knowing that you're the one responsible for yourself, and that responsibility ripples throughout the community and throughout humanity too.
But you're not.
You got to hold your own water jug.
Put on your mask before you put on, you know, your friends.
But you can't bring people with you and you also can't tell them either. You can do the breadcrumbs, but if they aren't in the space to listen, you have to let it go. And that to me is like, from all the Aquarians that I know, they're pretty cold, and they act like they have like humanities. So most of the Aquarians I know are basically hypocrites. I hate to say that. No offense if you are one.
I'm a Taurus sun, but I can say for a fact my brother and my best friend they were born on the same day. They're totally opposite because, you know, there's more than just your sun sign, but the day of birth and all that. It's true in the fact that idealistically they are very charged by ideas and concepts that, if not put into practical use, makes them cold. Like my Aquarian friends and my brother, they become cold if they're not applying what they've been learning. And so my brother, I think, is a good role model for myself because he's the only so my mother and my father and myself, we were all Taurus sun signs. Whoa. And my brother is the odd one out, and it's kind of funny because he's always set an example for us. He's someone who's always been responsible and applied all of this knowledge that he's been learning to his career and his path. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, even if you have nothing Aquarius about you in your chart or whatever, maybe you know an Aquarius. The point is, in the season itself, like today is the first day of Aquarius season, right? So it's like, it's exciting to think that from now till February 20th, right? It'll be a good time. And I'm not an astrologer. I'm just riffing here. I'm just, sharing my instinct or my intuition that all the ideas that we've been amassing, they got to be put into some kind of use. Otherwise, there's this quote. I've been saying this a lot lately, and I really love. I got a shout out to Miguel from Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio because he taught me this quote from the Gospel of Thomas, which is, "If you bring out what is within you, it'll save you, and if you don't bring out what is within you, it'll destroy you." And Jordan Peterson has shared this quote before as well. He's basically saying, like, if you're so introverted that you can't bring out the creativity or the potential within you, it will destroy you. But if you do, if you can produce something or make something apply what you've been learning, you'll save yourself and you might help other people too.
Right.
That makes sense.
Primarily, you'll be helping yourself. Yeah.
It's so funny you mentioned like how Aquarians are like he's like a role model, because the ones that I know are very idealistic, but their lifestyle is the opposite. And I actually admire their lifestyle. I
do too, yeah.
I admire the lifestyle. Like, they're hardworking. They say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. But their ideologies, it's more of like, for the greater good, this, that, and the other. I'm like, sure. But the lifestyle reflection you wouldn't think that. Which is
interesting, yeah.
Yeah, which is definitely fine, because as a Scorpio, I'm like the one who has to constantly be rebirthed and die and be rebirthed and die. And then I see the Aquarian and they just kind of like put out this intention and they do it. And I'm like, well, you didn't have the 10 ego deaths that I had to go through. So
yeah. Do you guys know Slick Dissident or Gabriel?
No.
He's got a YouTube channel. I chatted with him last night. That episode will be out on Tuesday, I think. He's amazing. He's really cool with like etymology and symbolism and the tarot, which is cool because the tarot cards. He was teaching me last night the tarot cards, and Mario Garza from Symbolic Studies talks about this too. The tarot cards will align with certain zodiac signs as well.
Yeah.
So like the astrological wheel and the major arcana from the Fool to the World card have alignments. Like Gemini, for example, is the Lover's card. That's one card that corresponds because there's two lovers on there. It's a twin energy. So interesting enough, Gabe was talking about opposition. So like I know, for example, the opposite of Taurus, like 180 degrees on the other side of that sky clock, that sky wheel, is Scorpio. So if I want to understand Taurus, I've got to understand the opposite too. So it's interesting that, as I try to learn more, like I said, I'm not an astrologer, but I'm aspiring to learn more. People, I think in like the mainstream normie way, people only focus on the sun sign, and there's so much more to be learned. And it's cool that, I think it seems overwhelming at the first start, but like you can start with your sun sign and then like your opposition. Yeah. That's a great place for anyone who wants to dive into that. It's pretty interesting.
That's a really good point. Yeah. It's so, because I started to really deep dive, and I'm like, ooh, there's math. There's some math involved.
Oh yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
They start bringing up a sextile and things like that. I'm like, I'm not following, but I'm gonna listen anyway.
There's degrees. And stelliums and angles. But for my three major ones, I'm a Sun, Scorpio, Cancer, Moon, and Rising Scorpio.
Nice.
Yeah. So
double Scorpion action.
I just feel like
that's a lot of Scorpio.
I just feel like I'm in constant state of like the world is ending and existential dread. The constant like I'm about to die, because there's just so much emotional emphasis on like rebirth and stuff. Rebirth sounds kind of gross. It kind of sounds like afterbirth.
It's not afterbirth.
It's not afterbirth, it's rebirth. So I want to know more about Texas, because I had today an experience myself. I'm working in corporate America. I'm training someone, and I work, not to give away too much about myself, but I work in an office of all women, and which is fine, I guess.
Are you all synced up?
No.
They're not synced.
We're not.
Weird. That's weird.
I know.
I mean, it'd be weird if you were synced, but that's just like me appreciating nature. But yeah, it's interesting.
No, I have friends that live in other states and we're synced up, but I'm not with anyone in my office.
Wow.
Right? Well, I don't know if being remote partly throughout the week has something to do with it.
Maybe throws off the sync.
Maybe it does.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. It must be that 5G.
Anti-sync 5G.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would be okay if that was like the one bad thing that came out of 5G was just like it messed with like women's like cycles, but someone would get pissed off about that, I'm sure. Like, it's not natural.
Probably not the best.
Yeah. So today and in other experiences, people will say things about like, oh, my crazy conspiracy theory sister, she won't get jabbed, but she'll also say things like she doesn't believe that birds are real. I'm like, damn it. And then
ruining it for everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Like
But also birds aren't real.
You know that, right? You are aware.
We're gonna have to end this call if we can't agree on that.
Like just like that kind of stuff, and I'm like, well, and no one knows how I feel about things, because I just try to come off as like, well, I won't discuss politics at work.
Well, especially in like that kind of setting, you really have to kind of toe the line to a certain extent. You can't really have too much of an open mind.
Exactly.
But for the most part, everyone was like, so during the election, everyone was coming up and like freaking out, and they were saying all these things about Trump, and like I'm not a Trump's. I didn't vote for him, but at the same time, I didn't want Biden. I hate the lesser of two.
I'll admit I didn't vote.
Yeah, I didn't vote either. Don't tell my mom, but
you know that South Park episode? It was like a turd sandwich and a giant.
Yeah.
That's how it always is. But I mean, I did have big respect for Ron Paul. I mean, he was like the guy that was like, I'm gonna vote Republican. Here we go.
Yeah, pretty much. That's why I'm a registered Republican too. So I voted for Ron Paul whenever that election was.
He's still alive, so there's still hope.
Yeah, he's still out there. Yeah.
But someone I was talking to today, I feel like they try to do these little winks and nods, and she was trying to say something about like, climate change, and then about abortions, and then about
just the best topics. Yeah.
Yeah, and then about,
everyone's favorite. Yeah.
The patriarchy and how women have ruled tribes. So what I did was basically just like, I looked around, I'm like, I don't want women to rule the world. Are you out of your minds? Why would I want women to rule the world? We need a balance. What are you talking about? Have you not met women before? And when you do that, they kind of just go, oh, yeah, because you know why? They think about all their bullies that they ever had in their life, and they're all women.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, don't you remember the time that when you were
all
in
the shit
fifth grade?
talking, the shame.
Yeah.
Want Courtney to be in charge of things? What did she do to you when you were in the 4th grade? Zero empathy. And then when you talk about that kind of thing about they're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I don't want women to rule the world. I'm like, do you not understand how history works about how women were behind the scenes or in front of the scenes and there was tons of war? And when you say that to them, they're just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, like, I guess you're right. But they're also probably thinking like, oh, she loves the patriarchy.
Is it fair to say like behind every great woman is like a fruitful empire or something like that? You know, it's like a stable economy or something.
Great economy under that chick. We got Janet Yellen in there. She's killing it at the Federal Reserve. So
yeah,
big ups. But I think that's more of just like the NPC. Yeah. That's just the NPC mindset.
Rhetoric,
I mean, that's really what it is.
Well, what do you guys think about this? Like, you know, it's interesting that when you're describing being in the workplace and, you know, you have a pretty unique situation being with all women. I guess, you know, I'm in a pretty feminized area as well. There's only a few men that I actually work with, but regardless of that, it's interesting that think about the Matrix, right? So if there's a glitch or some kind of anomaly, like if the antivirus software picks up on something, they're going to send in Agent Smith to go and get rid of it, you know, you know, and David Icke talks about this. He's like, the Matrix is designed so that the NPCs or, you know, the capos, like that's more of like a Holocaust term, like the prisoners would be turned into guards because they were almost like in a Stockholm syndrome mindset where they became loyal and they wanted to protect the system and, you know, become guards themselves. So it's almost as if, you know, when you meet someone who's open-minded, it's such a relief because I think people from their day-to-day, unless they're, you know, doing conspiracy podcasts all the time and, you know, they've got people to talk to like us, you know, it's like you have to hold it in because you become a target if you don't. And, you know, I wish it wasn't like that, but the proverbial Agent Smith, those like antivirus kind of NPC reactions that are really programmed into people, if you think about it, based on all the talking points. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen that clip where it's like they take all the news anchors and they're saying the same exact thing. It's dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah. They're all echoing like in unison. It's just overwhelming.
Gives me chills.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's kind of what happens though. And in my work environment too, it's pretty much similar to hers. I work with a lot of women. I mean, dealing with supplements, you know, beauty products, herbs, that kind of thing, which is generally female dominated, at least in my workplace. So it's interesting when I interact with someone that I find out has some awareness about the world. Like I almost get excited and like giddy and I just like throw up at them.
Yeah.
But I like throw out little nuggets like, the jab, am I right? Like I don't call it vaccine. I'm just like pretty wild, huh? How that happens.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, you know, I love Game of Thrones and like a number of like other like TV shows like that. And it's the same thing. Like when you meet someone and you're like, oh, you watch that, you know, it's kind of like, that's such a strange example. But like, if you think about it, like people thrive on being able to relate to each other. And I think that's why I was like so strongly drawn to getting out of Connecticut. And like I said, I love where I grew up. I'm thankful for that. But being in Texas, like, you know, the water cooler talk that you asked about earlier, it definitely vibes with me. And
it's good.
You know, among other things, it's cool to be here. And, you know, now I feel like I don't have to really hide myself so much. And my coworkers are into my podcast. So that was something I was like not bringing up at all in my old job. I was like, you don't want, like, I don't want to get fired. Like I'm openly denouncing this vaccine mandate. Like it's probably not going to work. So
I'm kind of curious because how do the kids compare? So like from my experience, like growing up with other kids or just myself, like I was pretty unique when it came to being open-minded to these ideas and these world events. And so I kind of didn't know what to do with it because I couldn't really talk to anyone about it. And so in a way, I don't think I went crazy, but I just did whatever I could to get people aware of it, and especially in a school setting. So I was like, I would go so far as to print out a bunch of flyers that say Google World Trade Center 7 or Bohemian.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Slip it under professors' doors. And like, I would just go around to my school and just like, and I would just slip it over and over again. And because I didn't know what to do, I was like, someone's got to know about this because I'm going nuts. But, you know, doing presentations, like I wrote a paper about World Trade Center 7 in college. And I got an A on it. And I don't know what my professor was thinking, but apparently I did good enough to get an A.
I respect that.
Yeah, and just like, you know, drug legalization, I did a presentation in my speech class on psychedelics and legalizing weed. It's just these ideas, like I didn't know how to get it out there. So in a school setting, I would just do what I could. And so are you seeing that with kids at all? Like compared to Texas and Connecticut, like are they openly talking about things like this?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, like when you asked me that, I'm imagining a group of students and, you know, they got their Texas accent. I don't really have the accent yet. I'm hoping that it'll kind of come through eventually, but just be like, man, this is bullshit. That's what they would say. Like, and I think, you know, it's hard to, I could never make blanket statements about people, but I do know that the community, the parents, the peer group, the media, you know, it's, the algorithm of your existence is really dependent on like what you give your attention to. So like the patterns that you notice, the things that you lean in towards is the algorithm that is our consciousness. And so like I could get a group of 20 kids, they've all got TikTok open and they're all seeing different videos based on their past behavior. So if you get an anomaly in the matrix, like, you know, someone slips a paper that was like, COVID was a lab leak from Wuhan, China, then it would be like, whoa, okay, the algorithm is totally different now. And now everything has changed. And yeah, I think that's, so to be fair though, I'm in another like urban setting outside of Dallas. And I strongly believe, because I did briefly work in a very rural setting in Washington, Connecticut, which is the middle of nowhere. The kids in the rural areas where their parents may work, maybe on farms, maybe like more blue collar. And, you know, that's not to say that the kids here aren't in a blue collar thing. And, you know, what does white collar and blue collar mean anyway? But the rural setting really, really, I've noticed it fosters more of an independence. And I think cities definitely bring out the hive-mindedness of people. So, you know, it's a balance. But as far as the kids, the last thing I could say is that because of the adults in Texas, you know, I'm sure it's kind of like this in Florida too. Like the adults who stood up and were like, we're not going to take this. Like, we're not going to have mask mandates for our students. You know, they really fought back. And you know, I won't like name any names because like there's always opposition, especially in Dallas and Austin, because they're liberal areas in a very conservative state. So it's like the opposition was very strong in these places. But you know, this culture, I still see kids wearing masks. No one's telling them to wear them. You know, I don't know all their stories, but I do know that if I actually like engage them and talk to them about what's going on, more than likely, and this could go from Texas to Connecticut or Maryland or wherever, kids are much smarter than we give them credit for. I mean, I'm talking like 15-year-olds, you know, in 10th grade. And if you give them the opportunity where they feel like they're not going to be judged, that's key. Because when you're 15, all you care about is your social status. All people care about is like how others view them. You know, I'm 27 now, and I give less of a fuck about what people think of me more than ever. But when I was 17, 16, 15, 14, I was so anxious about people liking me. So I was less likely to speak up and speak, you know, what I actually think. So if you invite kids, and I know you guys are parents now, so it's cool that eventually you'll have the opportunity to have this conversation with your child. And you know, it's gonna be a couple of years, but you know,
it's gonna be something.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Sit her
cool.
down. This is how the world works, sweetie.
Yeah, right.
It's like the kid that had a lot to say and would raise my hand in class and just like go off on stuff.
Nice.
But I didn't really know what I was saying or like, so it's probably pretty cringe. And I had a teacher in high school and he goes, you're asking questions like a college student.
Nice. That's a great compliment. Yeah.
I think it was actually, now that I'm older, it was not a compliment. I think he was more or less just being like, we have the curriculum at hand. Can you stop?
Yeah.
You're here to listen.
Yeah. Stop being so smart.
I would even say that. He was probably just kind of like, those are college questions, when it's really just like, oh my God, kid, like, stop.
Just you don't pay me enough to deal with you.
Yeah. Well, if you're curious, I mean, yeah, like, entertaining those questions or, I would rather have a cringy, like talkative student than like a very, very quiet class.
Oh, that's gotta be tough.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
Talkative student.
The worst time I ever had with it was in Connecticut during the thick of COVID when everyone's masked up, and the new outfit, it's kind of funny, like the fashion cycles that I've seen myself one time, and this still happens from time to time, but like one time in 2021, I started to pick up on this weird pattern that people would wear masks and hoods, and they became like what are those characters in Star Wars, like the builders, and they're like in the desert, like the Jawas, right? Like,
yeah.
They were kind of like that, you can't see their face, you only see like little eyes popping out, and like they all became like kind of anonymous in that sense. But when you're a student that like speaks up and stands out, that's what makes it fun. I mean, when we're reading a story in English class, there's always like a character that people like and a character that people don't like, and it's cool that if you're willing to speak up and be like, actually I enjoy this character because blah blah blah, it's creating that opposition is key, and I think that's a cool thing to come back to, that it's, you can kind of conform all you want, but yeah.
To finally have some sort of like opinion, basically. When you have all the little NPCs and they're dressed like the Star Wars desert people, and then you have finally someone who's just like, well, I just want to have a conversation. And that was me. Like, I would have professors even say, can someone else respond besides Caitlin? And I'm like,
yeah, kids are just preparing for the metaverse now with masks and hoods. They're just like,
really is like that. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys were ever, if fashion is ever like on your radar. I've always loved fashion and high-end couture, like street, like all of it. I don't really dress, or I mean, like I try to like, keep up appearances, but for the most part, I'm not really putting myself out there. But I was always obsessed with like fashion shows. And there was one look that always popped up, and it would be on what's that Bravo show? Like, oh my God, the fashion show. But regardless,
the runway, whatever. Yeah.
No, the runway show with Heidi Klum. The guy who
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Carry On, that guy.
Project Runway.
Huh?
Project Runway. I'm just kind of thinking of names. Yeah.
I have to like remind like every episode, I still have baby brain. It sucks. I don't know when it's gonna go away, but words, sentences, they still don't come easy for me.
You're doing great. Yeah.
Thank you. Because
you're
I'm
functioning.
Like, what's that word? What are words? They would always have post-apocalyptic.
Oh, cool! Like a Mad Max kind of thing. Like,
yes. And then I remember watching one, and it was like, this is what's going to happen when climate change takes over, and everyone has to like, so this has been going on for a while. We're in fashion. They're like, this is what our post-apocalyptic uniforms going to look like. And it's not fun Jetsons outfits.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not like Fifth Element fun. It's like
nuclear fallout gear.
Yeah, exactly. It's like always brown, dark, drab. Looks like you stitched it together from burlap, that kind of thing. It's always like pretty depressing, and everyone's always wearing masks.
That's interesting that they're talking about climate change in that one too, because I just saw one doctor I follow on Twitter. I can't remember his name, but he posted that Harvard had actually tweeted something out saying that they're going to be incorporating the side effects of climate change into their curriculum. So basically, part of the study of the biology of viruses, whatever else, climate change will be the potentially dominating factor in a lot of those studies in the future. So it's like, oh, is climate change causing this? Or maybe it's climate change that's causing this. And it's funny how they were able to ramp up the news, over the past year, getting people prepped mentally to accept this new idea.
It's crazy that cultural influence is coming from everywhere, even fashion. And, people can say climate change is so bad that it's making our clothes look crazy, But,
can you believe
I really want to ask you guys, because this came up with my conversation yesterday with Slick Dissident, and we were talking about etymology and, word magic and language and fashion. So this is going to sound crazy, but, think about it. Fashion and fascism and fascia. The fascia is what connects your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments. It's the fascia. Fascism is, the merging of the corporate and the state. So, like, imagine the government and some clothing brand merging together. They're becoming they're fascising or something like that. I don't know the correct phrase for that, but it's a fascia. It's a joining together, and fashion is joining people together in a certain way where they become uniform. They are dressing the same. They're sharing the ideology. That's why you wear a uniform for a particular role that you play in society. And the mask has become the fashion statement of the decade. But what's coming next is interesting because, like you've brought up, shifting away from pandemic to climate, especially, the World Economic Forum. If you go on their website and look at, the content they put out for Davos, it's definitely centered around climate and, climate activism. And people have made predictions that there will be climate lockdowns, and that hasn't come to pass yet. But, it's something that I've been thinking about lately. Like, well, if it's not a lockdown, it'll probably be like in a different form. Like, well, if you're driving this type of vehicle and you eat this kind of food, we're not going to be able to send you the crypto UBI that you depend on every month. Something like that. That's what I imagine. It sounds a little, what's the word? Like black-pilled, but at the same time, that pushes me, it's like the opposition that I really need to become more self-sufficient. I don't have room to have chickens. I'm in this studio apartment, but if I can work hard and save up before it's too late, again, not pessimistic, but if I can provide for myself, then we won't be so victim to whatever system comes out, because we'll be able to kind of like we'll have to build our own boat for the flood in some sense,
Right. Yeah, I don't think it's. I know a lot of people would say that's being black pill, but really you're just saying like what they want. Doesn't mean it's going to happen.
It's realistic.
But it's like, hey, they want a central banking digital currency, which would control so much of your life. I mean, money already controls so much of our life now. Imagine if they could track your money and then give you money or take money out of your bank account like that. I mean, that's just a whole new level of control that they've always wanted to some extent. So I don't think it's necessarily just black pilled saying like, hey, this is the plan. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's really good to be aware, because the more conversations like this, the more memes that are shared, the more we laugh at it, the more we get away from that system, the better.
Absolutely. I would definitely clarify. Yeah. The black pill is like nihilism. And, I definitely feel hopeful when I do podcasts with other people, because the fact that we're here to discuss is just, it says it all. We are coming together to share something crucial. Like, it's so important that we feel that we should share it with others. I mean, we could just meet at a restaurant or a bar and just have the same conversation, but there's something about this mindset that is worth sharing. And I totally am with you guys on that. Like, it's always giving me hope, and happy to continue doing it. It's been a lot of fun.
It's kind of funny because every time that I hear that kind of black pill kind of doomsday.
Mhm.
As soon as I acknowledge it and then I kind of digest it and I go, that's not gonna happen to me. I feel a lot better.
Yeah. You
I'm
take
like,
back your control.
Yeah. I'm like, that's not gonna happen. But it's just, so with the whole fashion thing, I just gotta add, there were fashion houses that were like Hugo Boss. They did Nazi uniforms.
Oh yeah, there was a big scandal about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Coco Chanel. I think there's some other ones too. I from the my memory, but there was definitely other fashion houses that were associated with fascism. And when you go to not when you on your casual trip to North Korea, but in North Korea they have haircuts that you have to get, the clothing you have to get.
Yep.
That is.
I've got a perfect example for you, and you can Google this if you're curious. There's an influencer, this trans person named Jeffree Star.
Yes.
Jeffree Star.
And Jeffree had a brand. So Jeffree's like a cosmetic influencer.
You know
I believe.
who Jeffree Star is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really weird you're bringing him up, but continue.
So if you Google, if you type into Google Jeffree Star Nazi, and I'm on Google.com, not DuckDuckGo or anything else, Jeffree Star Nazi. First thing you'll see is Jeffree Star apologized for, quote, lipstick Nazi picture or a lipstick Nazi brand. It's just funny, like, who would think that putting the word Nazi in your product's brand is going to be a good idea? Like, why? What are you thinking? Yeah.
People are loving this, right? Like, no one cares about Nazis anymore.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Jeffree was just trying to be rebellious, like
Kanye. Yeah.
Just like, I love Hitler. Like,
it is kind of brilliant if you think about it like that. Yeah, it's like, how do you get people's attention? Then you really got to piss them off. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and Nazi is like the go-to number one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which makes sense. I mean, don't get me wrong.
So like,
well done, Jeffree, but you're a sick fuck.
You're sick.
I know. I'm not gonna say much on the topic, but I know people that know Jeffree Star.
Jeffree's like gone like the opposite of that though. Like Jeffree's got his own ranch, like shooting guns away from everything.
He says Illuminati's after him.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I didn't expect to talk about this, but I did interview someone, and I didn't release this episode. I should probably talk to this individual. So Chris, if you're listening, I'm sorry I haven't put it out. It's just Jeffree has been accused of a lot of sexual misconduct, and I interviewed someone who was paid off by Jeffree's company to stay silent, and this is something that gives me chills to bring it up. I had chills during the interview. If you you can Google this person's name, and all the evidence that they spoke about on my interview was confirmed, and the check that came for $10,000, it wasn't signed by Jeffree Star. It was from his corporation, so it's basically from him. It was like he was using his company to pay off this person who would have ruined him. And yeah, I mean, so that brings up a whole nother issue, but related in the fact that when you're a figure, a brand, you can use that power to influence whatever you want. And that's kind of what the core of fascism is, right?
Right.
You make a company like Pfizer or Moderna powerful enough to influence people to the point where they could even like pass laws and regulation to defend you and defend your product. That is concerning, and I think that's what we've been dealing with the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy what they can get away with, and the people they can influence to tout this poison. That's why it's absurd, and I think that's why people are kind of waking up and realizing, because it's, again, just the absurdity is off the charts now. Because I mean, if you just keep lying all your life, like you can only lie for so long before people catch on.
Yeah.
You can only manipulate people for so long. I mean,
exactly.
there was a story about, I want to say it was like Bayer or IG Farben, I can't remember, but there's a factor 8. I think it was a drug or an injection for hemophiliacs. and it came out apparently in the French courts. This was on like Morning Joe.
Oh, it was
too.
Bear.
It was Bear.
What is hemophiliacs?
So I think it's just like something with red blood cells.
I think
like a blood clotting thing.
Yeah, it's like a clot issue.
Yeah.
And in the Factor 8 shots, it came out they knowingly had HIV in the shots. They still sold it, and they moved it and they sold it overseas. No one gets in trouble. They pay like $1 billion, which is nothing to them. And no one gets in trouble. And so we're now supposed to like support and like hoorah the pharmaceutical industry when like stuff like this happens over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, Fauci has the same kind of reputation that was almost like never spoken about with the AIDS situation.
AZT or something.
Yeah, one of those treatments that were, there's a lot of stories like that, and that goes back to the same thing. Like, if you're supported by the right company, then you're kind of immune. And I say this ironically, you're immune. you're immunized from any kind of accountability.
Well, didn't Pfizer? There was Russell Peterson.
Russell Brand.
Oh, I love Russell Brand. He's like the new Colbert Daily Show. Jon Stewart. He's like
he nails it too. I mean, he's
great.
He's so quick and witty.
Yeah. Oh, he's brilliant.
Writing, but still, he's on top of it.
Did you see the latest that he posted? It was about Twitter hiding information about the jab and
the Twitter files.
The Twitter files have been insane.
Yeah.
I mean, this is some of the biggest data leaks dump I've ever seen in my life. Like, these are bigger than like some of the WikiLeaks dumps.
Yeah.
You know, the worst part about all of this is that I still couldn't bring this up to people. I still couldn't bring it up to them. Like, well, they did this. Well, you should really do it because you're protecting yourself and you're protecting other people. But they lied.
It's also the area we live in too. I think like you saying like in Texas, it's completely different.
They say vote with your feet.
Yeah. Right.
It's exciting too, because if people are willing to have that tough conversation, like you're saying, which usually they're not, but maybe that's changing. I mean, it's the season of Aquarius now, so who knows what'll happen. But now that the Twitter files is immensely profound, and there's so much information that it's like if there was a trail of breadcrumbs through memes and podcasts and music and whatever was being produced in response to these last 3 years of craziness. Now, if you go on Twitter and you just type in Twitter files, I'm sure you'll find a thread almost instantly. You'll find multiple threads about multiple topics of the same issue, where the company Twitter, the corporation, is being mingling with this state entity, whether it's the FBI, the CIA, whoever. And over again, I see this pattern. It's concerning. And now I understand why Jordan Peterson has been so concerned. Say what he has made some mistakes. He's not the best at being on Twitter, ironically. It's sometimes it's better if you just wouldn't tweet. Yeah, just write your damn books, do your lectures, stay out. But anyways, he's always been so concerned about totalitarian control and controlling language, and he has essentially predicted a lot of what we're seeing now. And he's been canceled left and right, but I still stand by, back in 2018 when I first got into teaching and started doing the teaching program and the schooling and all that. He was a big source of inspiration for me. And it wasn't just him. And we spoke about this briefly last time. I'd love to hear you guys if you want to add some insight about Carl Jung. And, we talked about opposition in the shadow, and that is definitely essential in my I guess the last almost half of a decade of coming to terms with the darkness of the world. What do you guys think?
I studied Carl Jung when I was in high school, maybe college. So funny how I can remember my classes in high school way better than my classes in college. Always really enjoyed reading him. I did get some books. It's kind of funny. So for this one class, it was a Gothic class. because we could take like these like electives in high school, and one of them was like Lord of the Rings, which I probably should have done.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Class on Lord of the Rings and Tolkien.
Yeah.
It was these two doctors at my high school, Doc 9, Doc Sismonic, and they did Star Trek.
They still do this? Like, I work in the wrong school. What the hell?
I know. Yeah, you gotta go back to DC, unfortunately. But
you gotta bring it to Texas, right?
It might be worth it. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just bring it here. I'll be a trailblazer.
They did Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and a Gothic class, and I was like, Lord of the Rings is too hard. Because I tried reading, I read The Hobbit, no problem, and I tried reading Lord of the Rings. I'm like, I'm not vibing with this.
Pretty dense, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I should have picked that because Gothic novels, they kind of suck. But we did learn about Carl Jung and Embracing the Shadow, which is a lot of what Dracula's about, which a lot of the Monk is about, which a lot of Frankenstein's sort of kind of about. But
okay, we're gonna come back to Frankenstein later.
Yeah. So for one class I did, we had to do like a presentation, and you had to pick like a movie clip, and I picked this scene in Fight Club when they're in the car, and he was like, this is supposed to represent you embracing the shadow, like whatever. So I picked this like Carl Jung part about the shadow, and then I picked the scene, and he has the steering wheel, and he just has to let go, and then they just like crash, but then they survive. And I totally forgot how much cursing was. Like, I watched it, like, I can totally resent. And there's just like all these like, this is like a Catholic school. So
people are like, oh my God, my ears.
They're just like, oh my God, Caitlin, like, did you seriously have to pick this one? So for that scenario where you're letting go of the steering wheel, what is a way that someone can really do the shadow work, really let go of the steering wheel, just let the chips fall where they may? Another cool Fight Club.
It's a great question. Yeah.
What's like because I've been on TikTok and I've been looking at shadow work because I feel like if I want to advance, I need to do it. But the way that it's being sold on TikTok, I just don't find it to be very beneficial. I don't find these they're like, oh, here's a prompt, here's like a journal thing or whatever. I'm like, I don't think that's the way this needs to go about. So like, what's like an actual active?
Yeah, practically speaking, I mean, I'm someone who creates like short form video clips, and I know for a fact that if you're putting a 60-second clip on TikTok, you're basically giving a broad overview. You can only give you like a thesis or like an abstract.
Right.
So, and you know, it's cool that you've read Carl Jung's work, because there's something essential about slowing down and paying attention to your reactions to different things. So practically speaking, in the moment is when you will do shadow work. It's not like you sit down, it's like, all right, from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I'll be doing shadow work. You know, I'll call you when I'm done. You know, it's like, even, you know, you're sitting in a podcast, you're doing an interview, you're at work, you're driving, you'll always notice things that make you tick. They grind your gears, whatever it may be. And, you know, there's a famous saying that I think it actually comes from Carl Jung, probably. It's like, the things that you dislike about other people are just parts of yourself that you haven't fully integrated. Something like that. You know, I'm paraphrasing. And that's really what it is, I think, because passively, you can notice these things and just do nothing about it. You'd be like, all right, well, it's, you know, we can be cold to that information. I know like a very stubborn friend of mine is terrified of talking to new people. And when someone, like a stranger, will say hi to him, he kind of like retreats into his shell. And that's the shadow work that he needs to, you know, engage in, is thinking about the reaction that he automatically has when someone approaches him. Like, you know, his anxiety is very high. So it's like, if we become aware of, you know, I don't like the word triggers, because trigger kind of like makes it seem like it's just like instantly, like you pull this trigger and boom, there it is. It's like, no, I mean, you can really slow down no matter what it is. You can slow down and think and feel what is happening to you in the moment. And, obviously sometimes things do happen very quickly. Like you get cut off in traffic and you're tempted to throw them the finger or do whatever, but any chance that you get, I mean, you could schedule a time from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock to sit and meditate and think about things and see where your mind wanders to. Because I think inevitably in stillness, you will wander towards the shadow. And there's a funny, the first episode that I recorded in January was with Mira Taylor. She had talked about, I kind of asked her about the shadow in a very similar way. I was like, there is a perspective where you could tame the shadow, which kind of connotes like there's an animal that's got to be tamed, this wild animal. And she's like, no, you don't want to do that. Just become familiar with it. Like if you have a horse, I think a horse is a great example. Horses are very wild creatures. They can be controlled and tamed and become your ally and your companion, but they have to be treated right. So what I'm saying is, like, if you notice yourself responding to something in a way that doesn't vibe with you very well, that's your shadow, right? Whatever it might be. Don't beat yourself up, just accept that, okay, this is what I need to work on. And we're constantly getting information. We're getting signs, our emotions, our physical symptoms. The thing I want to end on with this point is that we had talked about diet last time we had spoken about, eating more of a, maybe like a keto friendly, high fat diet has really helped just to overcome some of the toxic things that we've consumed growing up. And what I've really noticed is that if I don't eat healthy, then my nervous system can't function in a way that lets me access these higher thoughts. If I eat junk food, I'm like lowered down into like my lower chakras, if you will.
Yeah.
But if I eat clean, my nervous system functions and there's no static in that radio signal. It's like crystal clear.
Yeah.
So those are other like practical things you can do. Keep yourself clean. Keep your thoughts open. Like, don't shut down when you get the difficult, uncomfortable feelings or information. Embrace it, face it head on. And you don't want to tame your horse and put it in a cage. You want to ride it. You want to like be there with it. You can't separate yourself from that wild animal. You got to become one with it. And I think that's the best way I could describe how to practically engage with the shadow.
So I have an example. Me and Christmas. I go off on these tangents every single Christmas about I can't stand people that like Christmas. Mm-hmm. I'm so sick of the chuggy Christmas. These people and their stupid Christmas time pictures. He every year he goes, oh my God, take it easy. Like, take it easy.
Let the people celebrate.
Yeah.
My God.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
So basically what I'm saying is when I have that visceral reaction, that's definitely like, that's the shadow. It's just this thing that pops up and it's like, hey, remember how much we hate Christmas and people that enjoy it? And I actually decorate for Christmas. I try to embrace it. We have a baby.
I was going to say, now it's about the child that we have.
Yeah.
That's
nice. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, not for us.
Right.
I don't care.
But
I guess that's what it's all about, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. But I just want to get rid of that like icky feeling.
Yeah.
Get rid of that icky feeling of me just being like.
I have a question then. Maybe, if you dig back into memory, like, do you remember when you learned about Santa Claus being a myth?
Yeah, that was really
devastating.
Right?
Look, I'm gonna be completely honest. My Christmases have always sucked because my parents fought on Christmas every single year.
Well, there we
go. Me too. Mine too.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like one of those things where I gotta get over. I keep telling myself I gotta get over it, but I don't think I've been embracing it. I don't think I've been embracing the fact that my Christmases sucked. I don't think I've been embracing like all the weirdness that's always been around it. I think I've always just been like, wow, this isn't for me. Like, I hope everyone has a horrible Christmas.
Yeah. Do you remember, like when we're thinking about being younger and being concerned with like social status, things like that? Well, like, it's ironic because I earlier kind of joked about like scheduling out a time to do your shadow work or to meditate, which is not a bad idea. But during the holiday season, we literally, as a society, and this is funny, like thinking about Pisces, hive mind kind of thing that you said earlier, in Capricorn, but that's different. Anyways, we schedule a time to be jolly and to be merry. And if you're not like jiving with that timing, like if it's just not working out for you, then like we have terms for that. Like you're a Grinch, you're a Scrooge, I think. That's like another phrase. Like it's kind of funny. Like there is I think it's manufactured social pressure to perform. It's like a performative anxiety that people get.
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I say it all the time.
Well, it's like it's kind of unspoken though, because most people are the most stressed during the holidays.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like it's an unspoken rule, basically.
Yeah. Everyone's miserable, but then everyone becomes magically okay on Christmas, and I don't. All the stress. I would feel my parents' stress around it. I think I just had a breakthrough. It's basically just like everyone's just like, it's the most magical time of the year, but that it's stressful for your parents, it's stressful for everyone, but on the 25th, it all just melts away.
Yeah, I have a question for both of you then, because we're coming up on the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year, and I think most people don't celebrate it in the U.S. I mean, as far as I know, like it's not. I mean, it'll be like tweeted about tomorrow on Sunday and Monday, and then like whatever.
It's not like St. Patrick's Day or Cinco de Mayo.
Oh yeah, right. Like everyone becomes Irish. Like no one like it's not going to be like everyone is going to become Chinese there. Like so. I
am going to wear red though. I told myself I was going to wear red because it's supposed to bring me money.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and it's your rabbit year, so that's
exactly.
I wanted to ask both of you, on this topic, because I think it's a great topic, and I thought about it a lot traveling for the holidays for the first time. How would you compare your inner experience between like comparing Christmas to New Year's, like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, whatever you want to associate there, because that's like a 2-day holiday, really. But how would you compare those two?
I mean, Christmas is definitely very family oriented, at least for me.
Yeah.
And then as far as New Year's goes, it was always this pretty standard US event. It's just like get really drunk and go party and celebrate the new year, ending of the old.
But like, how was it with your family growing up?
Yeah, I think it just depends on like tradition and stuff like that, which we have traditions in my family. But I don't know. I mean, they can be stressful, both of them in general, but they're both kind of different, even though they're so close.
Yeah, right.
Together, but it's like it's almost like a breath of like a sigh of relief after Christmas is over. It's like, okay, we just got one more holiday to get through. We can do the New Year's thing. We can celebrate, and then it's like.
And you chill till Valentine's Day.
Yeah. And stress about that, but
I'm the opposite. My whole entire thing was the whole entire lead up with Christmas. And then when that happened and Christmas happened, I was just like, oh, this is it. I've been consumed with the idea that I'm supposed to have this like magical day. And then like, the whole entire Santa Claus thing happened. But with just my parents like always fighting around Christmas time, it just kind of like sucked the magic out. And then my dad's from South America. So the way that South Americans celebrate New Year's Eve is completely different. So it's not completely different, but it is completely different because a lot of times it would be like, oh, we're going to stay at home, pop open champagne. Like some people do go to parties, this and the other. But Peruvians stay up until 8 a.m.
Oh, damn.
And I saw this thing where Latin countries, they eat 12 grapes on New Year's Eve right at midnight. And I was like, I asked my mom, I was like, well, do Peruvians do that? And she's not Peruvian. And she goes, yeah, I never understood it. It was so annoying. Like, you couldn't just eat the 12 grapes, but for whatever reason, it got on her nerves. I'm like, you make a wish for each grape. And this is the same lady that decks everything out on Christmas. I'm just like, it's just a tradition, you weirdo. So my New Year's Eves were always surrounded with going to these parties that I was going to be at until 8 o'clock. I remember this one party that my family went to. No, it was just me and my dad because I was like, I'm not going. So they were up partying. I had the time of my life because I got to watch whatever movies I wanted with the other kids.
Nice.
But I fell asleep. It was 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I go downstairs. There's all these adults passed out on the floor. I go to my dad. I'm like, can we go home? He was just like, okay. So they called a cab and everything. But to have that kind of cultural difference, it's a little bizarre as a kid because all my other friends were getting tucked into bed and everything was normal. But another thing about Christmas is that on Christmas Eve, that's the Peruvian Christmas. You open all your presents and you stay up till midnight. Christmas Day, you just have like whatever family get together.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there was just like kind of like a cultural rift in the family around the holidays because my dad wanted to celebrate it that way. Mom's like, nah, you got to be in bed, and New Year's Eve you have the champagne toast and that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you mentioned like I guess you mentioned this before, like as far as leading up to Christmas and the event is over and it's like the stress and then the event is over and then it's almost like still leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And speaking to Carl Jung, the last book I read of his was Modern Man in Search of a Soul. Yeah. And one of the aspects he talked about was people not being able to be okay with the passage of time throughout the day. And I think people were not able to accept that the main part of the day is over because, you know, your day starts, you have a brand new day ahead of you. Like anything's possible. It could go fantastically. But as, you know, you get later in the day at nighttime, like it's just regret. It's somber because it's nighttime. And so that day is just like a lot of people's lives. And so it's just that without incorporating that aspect of, you know, losing that part of the day or not realizing what could have been, then people get down, they get negative, they get lost a lot of times. And regret is a huge part of that, but it's also perspective too, because I think on top of Jung incorporating the shadow, you know, Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, is he had a recommended reading list of really hard books to read because of how horrible they were historically. And so I found myself, after reading his first book, I went through some of those books. I mean, a lot of it is war. A lot of it is just, you know, social experiments, governments gone awry, communism, that kind of thing. And you get to see perspectives of what people have gone through historically, but also you get the perspective of that could be you. In fact, that is you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the biggest takeaway. I mean, as far as shadow work goes, I mean, there's everyday shadow work, but then the overarching shadow work of morality really hit me when realizing that it's, you know, you think, and most people think this, is that they want to be good, they want to do good things, but as we've seen, you know, over the pandemic years, people are so quick to jump on the bandwagon and be able to point fingers, you know, label people, and things get bad real quick. And if people do not realize they can be that Nazi guard, they can be that communist guard, they can be, you know, XYZ, that eventually society might just lead back to that again.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of remember Dr. Peterson mentioning a book called Ordinary Men. I think it was about ordinary German police officers who were completely transformed by the SS or the fascists, you know, turned them into killers basically. And yeah, that's an important distinction to make between, like, you know, I'm going to try to frame this in a way that is helpful, because like I know that when people first hear that they they have the potential to be the monster that they're afraid of, it can be kind of like overwhelming, you know. So I like the idea that you brought up earlier, which is like when you wake up every morning, that's your new day, it's full of potential. And it's funny that in the beginning of the day we receive light, and light is also something that is like without weight, you know. It's like in the beginning of the day, we're not weighed down, we're light, we're getting light. And as we go through, I think the key is that our expectations accumulate weight. And I think like the most weightless light beings out there are something like Zen monks, you know. They're going through life and they're not like accumulating this karma, if you want to call it that. Like their expectations are only set on being present. And so it's interesting, when I'm driving, you know, I drive into work, and you know, there's a lot of crossing of the street in front of my school because It's in a pretty urban area. And, this sounds pretty messed up, but, if we're talking about shadow work, then it's going to go dark, and in the beginning of the day, I'm very light, but like every now and then, you'll get the thought that creeps in, like, someone else could just ram their car through that intersection. It could be me. It could be the person next to me. We all share that same potential, but it is like the idea that potential is within everybody in the same way that, the divine spark is within everyone. I think really, like, if people wanted to understand themselves, they should think about what do they expect out of life, and like, what do they expect from themselves? What do they expect from other people? And then how frequently have they thought about their potential? I mean, it's cool that, it starts with clean your room, and then it goes to like, well, are you being the best version of yourself that you could be? Like, if you think about it, we could always be improving. And I guess it's interesting to consider, if you want to make some kind of change in your life, you start small. Like, what is one thing I could do better at today? And I think that's
I like the idea
really
of
helpful.
not treating yourself like a tyrant, which he said before. Because I mean, which is, I'm sure worked in his clinical practice a lot too. Is you start with, the room, and you start with yourself a little bit as much as possible. But I mean, because it's all a reflection, your surroundings, how you present yourself, what you put in your body too. So I think all these little things do ripple out to the rest of the community, and I think that's a big part of incorporating the shadow. Like you were eating clean, having good ideas, being open.
Do you see the Aquarian sort of connection that we've made here too? It's like, we were talking earlier, like you have to like take care of yourself, and you're gonna like fill up your jug of water, which like kind of represents like your capability, your competence, right? And if it's spilling out because you're not being responsible, then you're not going to be able to like be in the world properly. And so it's cool that, we fill each other's cups. You're in your community with your friends, family, loved ones. You're doing what you love to do. You take care of the responsibilities that you need to get taken care of without letting them weigh you down too much. And I think that's really key. Is
Sorry, but I was going to say, I think when you said before about what you put in your body, because that's something that we talk about. We've talked about this on the first time that we chatted, was about a kind of a carnivore-ish style, but like incorporating really species appropriate foods.
Right.
That we've both seen huge benefits with that. And there's, now tens of thousands of people that have, and I think that's such a huge part about going into the age of Aquarius too, because we've basically just been poisoned, continuously every day. So imagine what that does to our thought process, how we interact with people. I mean,
exactly.
Like mental health, like why do we think mental health is so bad? I would bet that it's not only just the pharmaceuticals, but a large part of it is just straight up diet.
And they're so interrelated.
Yeah. So I think incorporating that, and it's just so weird how the timing worked out. I mean, obviously with the internet, that was a huge push for it, but just these revelations that are just like flowing out. And one of the biggest ones for me was a diet and nutrition. And it's just, it seems so crazy because you get so much pushback from legacy normies, family, and you get so much pushback. But I think the thing is like if you have a strong enough will, and if it works, and you power through it, just like with the dates and stuff like that. Like even if there's no one around you, it just shows that Aquarian energy is kind of pushing through.
I love that.
Yeah, it's basically like when someone always tells you, I eat healthy, I eat my fruits and veggies, and you just kind of roll your eyes and you don't reward it anymore. You don't go, oh, okay. You just kind of go, okay.
Yeah.
Cool, I guess. Well, now I'm like super curious because I mentioned Frankenstein earlier, and
okay. So
hear this.
This is interesting. What I'm about to get into involves transhumanism, Jeffrey Epstein, all our favorite topics, I think.
I love transhumanism. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, we started with Jeffree Star, and now we're on Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, if you're named Jeffrey, you're kind of fucked, honestly.
Yeah, what are the Jeffs up to these days?
Yeah.
Jeffs are losing it.
Yeah. So I had this. Oh man, this is interesting. So earlier I had mentioned that I used to work in this remote school. It was actually my first job ever. It was because I I graduated in April of 2020. Everything shut down. I was unemployed all summer. And then in September of 2020, I got this cool long-term sub job in the middle of nowhere. And,
the remote, the rural part
yeah,
of it. Yeah.
It wasn't remote though. Like I was actually going in, which was cool because,
Oh.
I'd stopped wearing my mask, but, whatever. Anyways, I got to teach a sci-fi class.
Ooh.
And sci-fi literature, most people don't associate Pinocchio with science fiction. But the truth is that Pinocchio is like an artificial intelligence. Now, previously, I took this college class which connected Frankenstein to the film Deus Machina. And if you've seen Deus Machina, you know that this is literally like, it's the story of Frankenstein, but instead of creating a monster, this scientist, this engineer is creating this cyborg with sentience. It's like Chappie, or iRobot, basically.
Yeah.
That creates Sonny, who is sentient in dreams.
Or
anyways,
AI.
AI, yeah. Basically, long story short, Frankenstein and Deus Machina, the creation ends up destroying the creator because, you can't control nature. And that's interesting point there. Just with Frankenstein, like there's a lot of symbolism about being able to control nature, merging the human with the technological. You can do it to a degree. Like right now, we're interfacing with these devices. We got our microphone and our camera and everything, the Wi-Fi around us. But the other thing is that, well, with Pinocchio, Pinocchio was created not for a purpose like Frankenstein. Like Frankenstein and Deus Machina, like those creations were built for basically just to say that they could do it.
Right.
It was like, it was a very not to degrade masculinity, because I think that the phrase toxic masculine or toxic feminine is very toxic itself.
Right.
But it was like a haha, like I told you I could do it. It was
I'm
like
a
trying to
god
prove
now.
them wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Pinocchio was a little different though, because Pinocchio was like a father who wanted a child and could never get one.
Yeah.
So he was able to wish upon a star, and the star gave the divine spark to this bundle of wood, which Pinocchio is made out of pine, and pine is very much associated with the pineal gland, and it's really cool. So, anyways, Pinocchio,
pine cone, right?
Pinocchio, yeah, exactly. So, Pinocchio, we all know the story. He's supposed to go to school, he's supposed to get educated, but instead these animals, I think it's like a fox and a wolf or something like that, these predators pick him up off the street and lure him into the show business where he becomes a performer, and he's in Hollywood basically. And then this big fat guy with a cigar is like, all right, I'm going to ship him out to Pleasure Island, and we're going to turn him into a jackass basically. And it's crazy because Pinocchio goes through this horrible transformation, but he comes back and he's able to save his father. And like, it's the ultimate hero arc. This is why Jordan Peterson talks about Pinocchio so much, because it's like society has like chewed up Pinocchio and spat him out on the other side. And even despite all that, he loves his father so much. He's so grateful for his creator that he's willing to go into the belly of the beast to save him. And that gets away from science fiction and Frankenstein, but the truth is that, like, transhumanism is something that's happening. AI is happening. I don't know how it's going to affect us directly. Like, I don't know if we're going to get like implants in our brain and shit like that, or if we're going to have like a pet robot that's doing the dishes for us or something like that. Something crazy,
like
but
yelling at us that we're
yeah. That'll be like your new shadow. Just be like,
too many carbon credits, like too much carbon.
That's a lot of carbohydrates on that plate.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Have you read Brave New World?
Yeah, I've got a copy right over there. My friend gave me one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book. I read it in high school, then I reread it about, I think, a year and a half ago or something. But the copy I got now was very interesting. It actually had a letter. I don't know if I mentioned this in the first time we talked. Oh. It has a letter to George Orwell from Aldous Huxley. Yeah, the author of 1984. And he's basically, hey, your book is really good. I found it a very fascinating read. But unfortunately, the circles that I hang out with, the people I know, which is, I mean, he was a technocrat. His brother came up with the term a technocrat, Julian Huxley. He wrote UNESCO. But yeah, in this letter, he's just saying the future that they want, the people that I hang around with, is way more closer to Brave New World than it is 1984.
Yeah, agreed.
Aspects of 1984, but it's going to be heavily pharmaceutical, heavy technocracy, heavily social engineering, and there's just no escape, basically.
Yeah.
It was just
That's
fascinating.
not a reason to lose hope, you know. It's like,
Right.
I mean, I had a friend bring this up because you know, as we kind of joked about earlier, he found my AI video very humorous about, like, you know, this avatar which was making the announcement for me, and it's like, that's very creepy, but like I could see this being like a new thing where, like, you know, if you need to get a message out and you don't feel like speaking, you know, you could just have the AI do it, and eventually, you know, there was a time when like horses would get us from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And some crazy guy was like, you know what? What if we use cars instead? And now it's like, if you want to ride your horse from Maryland to Texas, you'd be like, well, you're fucking crazy. Why would you do that? You know, and it's
Very
like, all right, so yeah, it's going to sound so crazy in the beginning, but eventually it'll be the new normal.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about that. And Pinocchio's going to tie in with this.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Rogan's also going to tie in with this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So Joe Rogan
Rogan
always talks about how humans are going to basically become these grays, and we're just going to send messages to one another. And that's also a part of a lot of occult beliefs where they're going to become the man, the woman, trans, whatever.
It's like that South Park episode, you know, the one?
Oh, wait. Which one?
They're like, there's like one race, and they they time travel. Yeah.
Is that the Took Our Jobs episode?
Yeah,
they took our jobs.
Yeah.
It's a huge pile.
The huge gay pile. Yeah, exactly.
We're going back to the
change the timeline.
Yeah. So he always talks about how we're going to be more telepathic. We're going to be more far removed. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I do think that there's going to be pockets of society where that happens.
Yeah. Zuckerberg's already spoken about that.
Well,
a potential breakaway.
You better tell that robot to shut up, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So, I don't know, maybe because Joe Rogan's a man. I don't know if maybe he knows something. Maybe he's a psyop. I don't know. But I know that he's wrong because he thinks that's the evolution. That's actually technically a de-evolution, because what he's talking about is in a human existence, or whatever it's going to be, where there's no physical touch. And that's what he's talking about. Like, no one's going to be having sex anymore. No one's going to be talking to one another anymore. They're all just going to be communicating telepathically. But the development of a child is so dependent on touch and eye contact. So you can't have a human progress to a high IQ, to being well developed, to being anything without looking at them, touching them, holding, all that kind of stuff. So whatever he's talking about, if that does happen, it won't be human. And I don't know what that is. Maybe he knows something, like I said, that we don't know.
Well, we've seen part of it. I mean, you saw those like birthing pods, right? Like, you don't even need a woman to make a baby. I mean, like, you need the ingredients, but like, I mean,
so
there's gene editing now,
whatever that's in there, that's not going to be human. Essentially, it's not going to have
split start to happen.
Right? Like, whatever their brain develops into, it's not going to be what we are. So for the actual human race to survive, I think it's still going to be a thing. I don't think we're going to get into whatever that is. There's just going to be that is, and then there's going to be us. And then to loop in the AI thing, there was that Steven Spielberg movie that was so bad, but it was actually kind of good. It's like 3 hours long, and it's actually the story of Pinocchio. And it was
we talked about that.
From The Sixth Sense. And there is this one part of it where I'm like, this movie's like kind of dumb. And the mom, so she lost a son, and the mom decided to have it go into like child mode. And they're like, do not press this button until you know for sure that this is what you want to do. And she's like, I miss my kid so much that I wanted to go into child mode. So she pushed the button, she said the words, and it activated. And he was like the boy. He was like, I'm a real boy, and this is my mom. So something happens, spoiler alert, they kick the little robot kid out because their actual kid came back to life. And they're like, this robot's a nuisance, get out of here. But the robot was just like attached. It was able to attach to its mother. And there was like this like one scene where they had the little robot kid about to get destroyed because in this dystopian society, they decided to do like those monster trucks, but with robots because they hated them. And
oh god, yeah.
So none of them had awareness except for this one kid who had that technology, who had this special technology.
Yeah, the empathy.
Yeah, the empathy, the touch, and they were gonna melt it. So like, you want to see this robot get melted? And everyone's like, yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then the little Sixth Sense kid was like, no, I don't want to get melted. Don't. And then everyone stopped because they realized, oh my God, they're aware now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cat's out of the bag. Yeah.
Yeah. They have the awareness of pain. They have the awareness that I can die. I can get hurt because she activated it that way. Like whatever gift from the mother to the being activated it, and now it was aware. But it was good. The movie was good up until that point, and then after that, it just got bad.
Spiraled out of control.
I was like, you could have gone so much deeper with the acknowledgement that the being craved like love and affection and knew what death and pain was, but you fucked it up somehow. I don't know.
It's interesting. Yeah, I've heard this argument about AI, and it's kind of makes sense to me that I don't know if AI will ever fully become like human or fully become like conscious as we know it, because I mean they won't have everything is going to be programmed ultimately. There's no hormonal driving factors like humans have. There's no drive to succeed, to climb up a ladder. There's no reproduction needs, which is why we do a lot of things.
And there's no touch.
Yeah. There's so much stuff that hormones drive that AI I don't think will ever have unless it's programmed into it. But then I don't think we'll ever have a full-on like big C consciousness.
You guys know Rick and Morty?
I'm familiar with it. I've never watched it.
I tried watching it. I got very anxious because of the speed that they talk at. It's very...
Oh, yeah. I mean... If you're like a Zoomer or millennial, it's like hitting on all those ADHD. Yeah, but anyways, there's one bit where, so Rick is the scientist. He creates this little robot, and the robot, he like turns it on, and the robot is like, "What is my purpose?" And they're sitting at dinner, and he's like, "Your purpose is to cut the butter and pass it to me." And he's like, "Oh." So it's like that's programmed into these devices. I mean, for now, I mean, we did look up the ChatGPT. It's generative program trainable. I think I forgot the acronym, but still, I can give you an example. And forgive me if I've already said this, but like ChatGPT as the current thing, the current AI that's being interacted with, it's learning from us. But at the same time, it's been taught how to learn and how to interact with the world. Example, like if you ask the ChatGPT, what is the correlation between certain medical products and myocarditis? I'm trying to be clever here, but like it'll say something along the lines of, it's safe and effective. You don't have to worry about it. Those are conspiracies. So like, just like a child, it depends on the parents. And I think eventually we'll see a ChatGPT like entity. Doesn't have the big C consciousness. I agree with you, but it will be trained to be honest. At the very least, it'll trained to be able to handle cognitive dissonance, where it's like, well, on one hand, here's this set of data. On the other hand, this is also possible. I think for now, even the AI has tunnel vision.
Yeah. Have you ever read any Robert Heinlein's or heard of Robert Heinlein?
No, I'll write him down though.
So he wrote this book called "The Moon is a Harsh Mistress." He was a pretty big sci-fi writer.
Oh, okay.
But he was basically like a pretty wild, like libertarian sci-fi writer. And in this book, I mean, there's a global government. The moon is like a jail colony.
Lunar colony, yeah.
Yeah, and so but the people that are in prison on the moon have an AI that's trying to help them. So it's like, I wonder if there's going to be an offshoot of ChatGPT or something similar that actually has humanity's interests, you know?
Yeah.
I
mean,
it's going to be like the AI from Aliens, and we have to be nice to it. Otherwise, they're going to create the alien
virus. It's like Prometheus too, when you're talking about how the creator destroys its creation. You know, as soon as like the giants see humans, they just want to kill them immediately.
Well, the main thing with Aliens was the latest one that came out with a meddling robot. Basically, he wanted to meet the creators because his master wanted to meet the creators. And then you had the creators, and the creators were just like, "Oh my God, what did we do?" Yeah. And then they destroy him, and then he's like, "Well, now I want to be a creator," because that's what he saw, and then he set out destruction. So
it's a cycle.
I'm just gonna be really nice to all the
This is like the ultimate conspiracy for me, because it's not necessarily like always about the AI and like that like modern tech, because you could take this idea billions of years back to like the stories of the Anunnaki. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you know, like we could be programmed, you know, through religious systems. Because if humanity was created to perform a function, then it would need a programming that would help it to perform its function without, you know, error.
Right.
And eventually, you know, people would be like, wait a second, you know, it's like the Truman Show, like the lights start falling down. And I think that's so poetic. I love how they did that. It's like it's like he's seeing a UFO and realizes he's not alone for the first time. And you know, that's like, it's like the ultimate conspiracy for me. And I think just like Truman, you know, Jim Carrey in this film, he's a true man. He's finally realizing that he can be independent of the system that is trying to mold his behavior and his ideology. And he just exits Plato's cave and lives his own life, thinks for himself. And I think it's always been one of my favorite movies. I go back and watch it anytime. In fact, you know, if you want to, if you ever want to like get together and break it down, that could be a lot of fun.
That'd be cool. Actually, so have you ever read the book or heard of the book, The Naked Bible?
No, I'm going to write that down to you. Give me two
Oh
books.
My God. So that's so funny you brought this up, because this is like a whole podcast in itself, this book. So there's this guy, I'll just introduce it at least. There's this guy, Mauro Biglino. So he actually translated the original Hebrew books of the Bible for one of the publishers that the Vatican uses.
Ooh.
And so he is like a OG, like I go directly to the source of the Bible translation. And so he translated the first 19 books. He then was like, oh, I'm reading something completely different than what the King James, than what most people are reading.
I bet, yeah.
And so he was doing presentations, writing his own books. And so the publisher found out what he was writing about. He's like, oh, we're not going to use you anymore because you're ruining the theology behind it. And it's changed my perspective on Christianity and the Bible completely. But it's just like the Anunnaki. I mean, literally, if you read the Bible for exactly what it is, you get Zachariah Stitchin, you get the Anunnaki. Because, for example, the Elohim, which is supposedly the name of God, it's known to be a plural word.
Yes.
It's not just one. There is so many examples of contradictory things that God does. Whether he tells the Israelites to brutalize or kill massive amounts of people, when it comes to revealing himself to Moses, how he has him hide behind a rock. And the word they use for the Holy Spirit is actually called Raush, which is technically, translated into like a strong wind.
Yes,
so
like breath.
Like a breath. But then why would he have to hide behind a rock? Like, why would he couldn't look directly at God? And then as far as sacrifices that are presented to the Elohim are always wanting the main things that human wants: They want burnt fat and meat. They want smoke, and they
want the good stuff.
They want wine. Wine. So the Elohim want this. But again, the Bible is just riddled with examples that he states there's no God anywhere found in the Bible. All there is interactions with these beings that created us in what's called the Garden of Eden, or the Gan, a walled area, a walled city.
Walled garden.
Yeah, that actually there was multiple apparently going on the earth in those days. So it's just like, again, it's a whole podcast in itself, but just that book is very interesting.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Graham.
I have a feeling, we should definitely get back together and dive into this and like do it justice, because just scratching the surface here, it gives me chills in a particular way, because like it reminds me of the fact that, even if, the three of us could have totally different versions of our origins, which is all speculation in the end, but at the same time, they all point back to the same direction. Like what we all have in common is whatever this divine spark is within us. Maybe it's in the pineal gland, who knows? But yeah, it's exciting.
Well, again, it's just what David Icke has talked about. It's just puzzle pieces. It's just like you just keep connecting. Yeah. You just keep connecting the pieces. You get a bigger picture, and then it's like, yeah, I don't know 100%, but it's like I'm looking at a picture that makes sense right now. Like I'm seeing the borders on the puzzle.
Mm. Yeah, right on. Yeah, I'm down to dive into that. I feel like it's my favorite topic for that same reason. Like your puzzle pieces and my puzzle pieces, like the three of us together, when we put them all together, like we're gonna get something unique. And I think that's what's fun about podcasts, is that it's like a laboratory of ideas, almost like we're alchemizing. We're putting different ingredients together. There's chemistry involved. Some people don't vibe with other people, and it's very scientific in that way.
Yeah, it's so
trust
true.
The science.
Yeah, you better trust it.
I'm the science. Don't question it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just there's always new puzzle pieces. I mean, the World Fair was a new one for me, which I was just like away by the World Fair.
I already knew about that.
What the hell is this?
Yeah.
I definitely already knew about that one.
This episode I did yesterday was Slick Dissident. I guess you'll be able to get the full context later on Tuesday when it's coming out. But there's Vulcan, the god of like the forge, crafting weapons. Vulcan, god of volcano as well. God of iron almost. And Iron Man, like Tony Stark, is kind of modeled off of Vulcan. And in downtown Birmingham, Alabama, there's a statue created for Vulcan. The creator of the statue, I think his name is Giuseppe Moretti. He's an Italian sculptor, and he also helped to build the Rothschild Palace. And so if you look into this Vulcan statue in downtown Birmingham, Alabama, was supposedly connected to the World's Fair back in, I think it was 1904. Ooh. So yeah, it's like they've got the backstory of this statue, yet when you bring in the World's Fair to the equation, it's like this could be far older than we believe. And yeah, it's
it's so crazy, man. Just like you say, you're getting chills. I get chills thinking about it, because it's just like it's so much like data that just makes sense. It's overwhelming, and your body gets that reaction where it's like, am I onto something? Like, are we onto something? Talk about it.
I think we usually are. I mean, if we trust our instincts, I mean, instincts can be wrong. Like facts can get mixed up. You forget names and dates and things like that. But I don't know, like that instinctual feeling, like we're given a story through history that Columbus and all of his friends sailed here, and all he found were a bunch of savages. And that just seems like bullshit. Yeah. I bet there were cities here, there were monuments, structures, and things that were way beyond what we could imagine a savage group of people could construct. They were probably far beyond what we could imagine. San Francisco, for example, it's on the western frontier. That was supposed to be like the last, area that we conquered. Yeah. And yet you look at the San Francisco architecture, and it's just a whole rabbit hole that
Yeah.
Probably sounds silly if you've never heard about it, but if you look into it, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, it's just the fact that they destroyed it all. Like, that is just the dumbest excuse I've ever heard. Like, we build this incredible architecture, but we gotta destroy it all.
Yep. Or some of it mysteriously burned down in a crazy fire. Yeah.
All the fire. Yeah. It's just,
my thing about all that is throughout history, we've seen these incredible buildings that their explanations to me don't make sense. And I don't think they can actually really explain it. There's a lot of speculation. And yet they tell stories like, oh, these palaces are beautiful and huge. There was no indoor plumbing. Like, but they had indoor plumbing at other times. You're gonna have you're gonna have a room made out of gold, and you're not gonna have indoor plumbing, and like you're pissing and shitting in the castle, and you're gonna tell me that there's no toilet. Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't check out.
Yeah,
it's always hard to wrap your head around. For sure.
There's so much time to do all these intricate carvings that take hundreds of years, but we still figured out how to poop safely.
And then they're trying to tell us that it wasn't until whenever Christopher Columbus came over to, it wasn't even the United States. It was like an island by like Florida. And you're going to tell me that they didn't have the same kind of wooden ships available at the time that they're going to travel? Like, I'm sorry.
Craziness.
They've been traveling all across this globe. There wasn't any more advancements from those other wooden ships from the other ones, and you're not going to tell me that they figured something out with whatever maps and stuff like that. That's just like not how this works.
Something I could share. Apparently, now I need to I really want to dive into this. In Egypt, when they uncovered one of these mummies, they found coca leaves. And if you know anything about coca leaves and like cocaine, it only comes from South America. So that you could put two and two together. It's like, all right, either an Egyptian sailed to like Brazil or somewhere like that, or a Brazilian sailed to Egypt. And it's like, wait a second, like we were never taught this. But
that's quite a trip. Yeah. Well, it's easy to see nowadays how academics would be able to poo-poo because they just don't want to debate. Like with Graham Hancock, for example, if you tried to debate something, I can't remember his name, Zawi or something like that. So he was like the head of Egyptology in Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted to debate him in person, and Graham Hancock came, and he just refused to debate him.
Yeah,
so
he refused, That's very telling.
Yeah, they just banned him from Egypt. They're like, you can't come back. So it's just like the gatekeepers are there. A lot of them are just useful idiots, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would love to go back through Ancient Apocalypse. I kind of like binged through it because I was so excited, but like it'd be cool to slow down, break down, like go through each area. Like I was really into, because my last name is Locarvatondo, which is a city in southern Italy. It's like on the heel of the boot in this area called Puglia. And when you look into Sicily, so there's this island, it's being kicked by the Italian peninsula. There's like evidence that Graham Hancock puts forth. I'm sure you guys remember. It was like eventually this was all kind of washed away, but at one time this was all like one big peninsula, one big island, and then flood happens and so much is lost, and all that is fascinating because there's literally and figuratively, there's a lot to dig up. There's a lot to uncover there. And on the surface level, the historical narrative, most people don't question it. Most people are like, why do you care about this? But it's like, well, one, it's fun and you can't take fun away from us. Yeah, very fun. But two, I mean, like that kind of revelation can lead to something great. I mean, if you feel like you, if you want to understand more about like how the pyramids were built and things like that, that could lead you down a very confusing road. But I think there's something valuable to be gained from that. And it's like almost like an initiation, if you will.
Yeah. And I think if you take some of these topics and you really like stew on it, it will change your perspective. It'll change you as a person,
but it opens you up.
Yeah. A lot of people, it's just flight by night. Like they just read it in passing. Like that's interesting. They never incorporate it and really think about what that means.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been more frustrated when I've heard people go, I hate history. why do I have to learn about history? And then
it's a Rockefeller education system for you.
Well, the latest one that I have to hear about is why do I have to learn about these old white men and what they have to say? Like
cringy take.
Cringy, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, there's gonna be opposition always, and I guess like the trick is find a way to like I personally I always feel very fulfilled when I'm able to like learn about, talk about, think about what I want, and then being aware that like there's the opposite side or there's the opposition that's like gonna call me crazy and gonna like shame me for being interested in a certain topic or having a certain opinion, but doing it anyway just because like it's our natural right to be curious. We have this curiosity. We're born with it.
Yeah.
And it's something we got to nurture.
That's way more fun, like you said. It's just
way more fun. Yeah.
It's just simplify everything, put it in a box, be like, yeah, we're done with that now. We figured it out.
Right.
No, sure? I need to talk about this.
You sure about that?
Like finite and infinite games. You know, I love the infinite game of discovery. You know, I know a couple things for sure. Like I know how to eat properly. I figured out my diet. Like I'm done with that. I know how to do it. I'm sure there's more supplements I could learn about. More interactions like vitamin D, vitamin K, etc.
Yeah.
But that's kind of figured out. And I'm glad that we figured that out. And then there's like other things that we could continue stewing on. And it's like the return on your investment is just continual. It's like passive income almost.
Yeah. It's true. Knowledge is definitely
passive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always pretty much, I get this feeling of almost dissatisfaction. Like, so with the book that he was referencing, Naked Bible.
The Naked Bible, yeah.
So the Old Testament, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. Then they were talking about New Testament stuff and the Christ interpretations. I was like, this ain't it. And it wasn't because I wanted to like fit my narrative. It was more so what he was talking about in the Old Testament versus how he was describing Christ and the influence that the Christ figure has had, not just in Christianity, but eons before that. I was like, that's not adding up.
Well, think about it. I mean, have you heard of Krishna consciousness?
Yeah.
It's like Krishna, Christ. I mean, there's
the Christ molecule.
Yeah, they would say like Hinduism is like the oldest system.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe you guys are familiar with astrotheology. Like Micah Dank is someone who's introducing a lot of people to astrotheology. He's got a great book series into the rabbit hole. Actually going to interview him on Sunday. I'm really excited.
Nice.
Jesus is the son.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like crazy to, if you go your entire life, you know, attaching yourself to a mythological human being, or someone who's like half human, whatever you would refer to him as. And then you're like, wait, it's the son. And I remember when I first spoke to Micah, I was like, kind of like traumatized in a way. I was like, well, like, do you believe in God then? He's like, yeah, of course I do. But just remember, this book about Jesus is talking about the stars and the sun and this and that and the planets.
Yeah. Right. I totally, like, I follow his stuff and I totally see that, but I just can't ignore the human embodiment that's
it's powerful,
in like other religions. So I just see that side. And I think it's one and the same.
Crucial,
I think it's one and the same, but this is what I believe. I think that there is a human embodiment that has been throughout the ages. And I think it's more the same Tripoli talks about, the time traveling Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Like Saint Germain could be like one example of that. Have you guys ever seen that TV show Lost?
I never actually watched it. No.
Okay. Do you guys know Ram Dass, Richard Alpert?
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with him. I've listened to some clips and stuff online. Yeah.
Okay. So Ram Dass was Richard Alpert. He became Ram Dass. He used to work at Harvard with Timothy Leary, doing the psychedelic studies in Harvard. There is a character in this TV show Lost who was like Saint Germain. He's immortal, and he basically he lives forever. He touches the lives of all these people. He helps them get to where they need to go. He basically orchestrates everything to make sure that they're all going to end up on this island together to form the plot of this TV show. And his name is Richard Alpert, and it's kind of funny because it's like Richard Alpert is like this very psychedelic figure. He helped to wake up the masses, and that's kind of what Christ is supposed to do. He's supposed to like be that rebellious figure that is like, hey, people, things are not the way that they're supposed to be. There's a better way. There's a better way to live, and I'm going to show you. It wasn't until we wrote his words down in a book that things started to go crazy. People interpret things differently. I hear Juan from One on One podcast joke about this because he grew up Christian, that there were wars started because people were arguing about what kind of bread they should use for the communion. It's like, and it's pretty funny. So I totally agree with you guys. Like the humanizing qualities of Christ or Krishna or Buddha or whatever mythological spiritual figure you want to associate with is great because they're really all they're like different fountains that are appearing from the same spring. It's fascinating.
And I know Graham Hancock has said this, kind of coined the term that we're just a species with amnesia.
Yeah, exactly.
Every once in a while, we just need to wake up again. And so someone's just like, hey, check this out. Listen to me for a while.
And the guy, he's basically like the guy from Quantum Leap. And he just like keeps like, I gotta go back. I gotta go back to this time.
Yep.
They forgot.
But I guess that's the call for all of us though, right? I mean, all of us should like, emulate, have something that we hold in high esteem to try to, again, to emulate.
I just wish there'd be someone that would be like huge Quantum Leap back
Someone that's a little more clear, maybe use AI.
Yeah, waiting for the return of a Messiah is. I mean, I've heard it been called like the Messiah. You ever hear that?
Oh,
I know, it sounds dangerous.
Yeah. Dangerous. I mean, I think it's heretical, like Gnosticism. It's heretical to believe that like your access to God doesn't come through someone else. It comes from yourself. It comes from within. We could all access the divine intelligence of the universe through ourselves, not to be like selfish and self-centered, but really to just like embody those humane qualities that Christ and Krishna and Muhammad and Buddha taught us. But knowing that you don't have to construct a massive temple, although they look cool, they're beautiful. I'm sure we don't understand the purpose of those temples fully, but
there's a lot of Well, oh my God, there's like this like it's kind of like a funny TikTok where I don't know if like you're on the whole TikTok trends, but there's the TikTok trend with the kid from Stranger Things. Yes.
I saw one about Birmingham, Alabama today. Speaking of Vulcan, I sent it to Gabriel because we were the World's Fair. I mean, they have written the timeline in so many different ways. I mean, even like Plato, talks about what's that underwater city called again?
Atlantis.
Yeah. Right. It's like, that is not really part of the historical narrative, but it is in a way. It's like there's something there.
So they thought about it. They thought this would be the new Atlantis, like Sir Francis Bacon, a couple of these other old Rosicrucian esoteric guys. They're like, we have to build the new Atlantis.
I was talking about Shakespeare. They're like, Shakespeare wasn't really real. Like, it was Sir Francis Bacon. And they're just like...
That's a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a wild one.
I love that one.
Yeah.
I love that one. But
have you guys, are you familiar with The Tempest by Shakespeare?
No, I've never read it.
Is that No, I'm thinking of The Shrew.
Oh, okay. Yeah, The Tempest is a shipwreck onto an island. It's very much like Lost or Lord of the Flies. Shipwrecks onto an island. So I would bring up The Tempest kind of like as a plug to go and check it out. And there's actually Russell Brand is in a film adaptation of The Tempest. It's really good.
Oh, nice.
And the same girl who was in Rogue One, the Star Wars story, I forgot her name. She's beautiful. She plays the main heroine, Miranda. Mirar in Spanish means to see or like to look. And to bring this full circle, I totally forgot about this. I'm so happy you brought up Brave New World because the phrase Brave New World comes from Shakespeare's The Tempest.
You
better watch that.
Interesting. I'll have to watch
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. I think you might have to pay for it though, but
right.
I'm sure you guys are capable of finding it. Yeah. It's The Tempest with Russell Brand. You're gonna love it. And yeah, the Brave New World doesn't come till the end of the film, but just if people were ever curious about where Huxley got that phrase from, I mean, I'm sure Shakespeare maybe has whoever Shakespeare was got it from somewhere else, but you know,
big fat occultist.
That if you're gonna connect dots, I would definitely check out The Tempest.
Yeah, I will have to because Brave New World was a big one for me. And
yeah,
I was just like, what the hell? What is?
Let me just in case people are curious, I could give you the full quote because basically like Miranda has grown up on this island by herself. It's just like her and her father, and then like this ship crashes onto the island, and like all of a sudden there are these new people, and she's like full of like excitement, like oh my god, like this like it's basically like she's being red pilled, like she's figuring out for the first time that there is life outside of this island, just like Truman in the Truman Show.
Yeah, and
she said
the cave,
the Plato's cave. Yeah. So she sees these people and she's like, oh, wonder how many goodly creatures are there here. How beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. Love that quote.
Oh, that's wild. So he just snagged that.
Yeah.
And then he inverted it. He did the opposite.
Now there's the character who's like the savage, right? And he's like living like away from this technocratic society. And I don't know, maybe that's like the reaction that they're going for. Like if you're living your entire life away from the system, then to finally interact with it, or the opposite. The people who are living in the city, they go and meet someone who's totally removed, kind of like when the Europeans, I don't know, from the narrative that we get, they meet the natives and they're like, wow, they live so peacefully, and it's so different. Like it's a whole new world for them. From both sides.
He definitely does not paint the natives in a pretty picture in Brave World. I mean, they're just like disease ridden, like they get food.
It perpetuates that same savage stereotype that we started about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. The interaction between the savage and I can't remember the head, like the head manager's name. It's like Mufasa or something like that. But their interaction is pretty incredible. Yeah, it's pretty profound.
One last little like conspiracy weave that I'll give you about the Tempest, because I really I want to do a podcast about it. So if you guys watch the movie, let me know. But you guys know Magellan, right? He's again, the story is he sailed around the entire world. In his travels, there's a cool book that has like the accounts, like the stories that were written down, the journal entries, if you will. And there's a story about giants in Argentina and things like this, and all the cannibal societies that they've run into on their travels. And one Italian writer wrote this crazy mythology about people with heads in their chests. Like think about like if they had like eyes, like on their tits, like it's like right. So that story was brought back and painted these savages in a really negative light. And so in The Tempest, the only other character on the island with Miranda and her father is this savage. He's like a half breed. His mother was a witch and his father was unknown. Like someone knocked up a witch, basically. This being was born on the island. Its name is Caliban. Caliban is like an anagram for cannibal. Like you switch around a couple letters and it's cannibal. And Caliban is like associated with Earth. He's like the master of the island. He knows this place very well. He's like the savage. And they educate him. They teach him how to speak. And then on the flip side, there's a spirit named Ariel. Ariel is the same name of the Little Mermaid, who gives up her voice in order to get legs. It's kind of funny. So Ariel and Caliban are slaves. Ariel is the master of the air and the water. Caliban is the master, Ariel is the master of air and fire. Caliban is the master of earth and water. And these elements are being controlled by the magician. Miranda's father is named Prospero. And just the last thing I'll say about Prospero is that Shakespeare wrote Prospero to model John Dee, who, if you know anything about like the occult magic in England and with like Queen Victoria
language.
Yeah, John Dee was the court astrologer and magician for Queen Elizabeth. So Shakespeare was well versed in all that, and so it's really fascinating. And Russell Brand plays the fool. He's like the fool, the Joker that was on this ship. And long story short, like, the ship crashes on the island, and they all meet, and Brave New World. Yeah, hooray.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely have to watch it.
I hope Shakespeare would be proud of my plug right there.
Sir Francis.
Don't you mean Sir Francis Bacon?
Yeah, Sir Bacon. Yeah, very halal.
That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, we've been going for like 2.5 hours. So I don't want to take up too much of your time.
That's all right. These are my favorite conversations. They feel so natural. I mean, you forget that we're recording after a certain point.
Exactly. Yeah. It just becomes
fun.
This
has been great.
Yeah, this is awesome though. But yeah, thank you for the recommendations, and thank you for the conversation. It's great.
Likewise, yeah. I got The Harsh Mistress of the Moon and the Naked Bible written down.
Nice.
Yeah, we're definitely going to check out.
I gotta digest all of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting trying to write a description for this podcast, but I'm excited to go back and listen to it again.
Right. I mean, we could just call it like Brave New World.
There it is.
Is there anything that you wanted to end on?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank people who are listening, because I think it's been like 3 hours. If you're listening right now, you're much appreciated. And anyone listening, if you want to join in on the conversation and just like share your thoughts, share your memes, I've got an Instagram page. It's @LocoListens. You can hit me up there. There's also a link tree attached to my profile. If you want to make a video for your page, I'd be happy to work with you. All of my work and my portfolio is on Instagram and TikTok, LocoListens. I love having these conversations, and I just want to say, like, to end on this note, like, people have a gift, and if you talk to them, if you let them speak their truth, then they will bring that gift outside of themselves. They will like produce something unique, and that's, I appreciate what you guys have been doing with your podcast. You've given me that opportunity, and I'm so happy we've been able to do this. Can't believe it's been 3 hours. Holy fuck.
Yeah, it was too easy.
That was awesome. I love that. I love that ending message. It's amazing. You're such a good teacher. Like, it's just like everything was, you just said, it's like such a like spoken like a true teacher of youth. Just wanting the little ones to have their gifts and to speak upon it. That's amazing.
I think you guys are going to be awesome parents. I mean, you're already parents, but like what I'm saying is, like, as your child gets older and you're able to start having these conversations, like, they're in very good hands, and I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Your family.
He's gonna be an interesting kid.
I really hope.
Hopefully she's interesting. She's not gonna be an NPC child, that's for sure.
She's full of potential.
Yeah, exactly. It's a new day for her.
Pretty much.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, thanks again. It's been awesome. We definitely got to do this again soon.
Yes.
Right on. Yeah, and if we're doing a Swapcast, you guys want to tell people where they can find you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just have Instagram, New World Normies Podcast. You can definitely follow us on there. On that page, you can find our link tree. Our podcast is available pretty much everywhere. It's easy. And then if you ever want to contact us, if you got something awesome you want to talk about, something unique, something conspiracy related, esoteric, anything, contact us at newworldnormiespod@gmail.com.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you guys. You guys are the best. You did a great job. I had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this again.
100%.
Same.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
All right. Peace.